and our employees, today's meeting is being conducted virtually. Public comment will be limited to the items included on the agenda. I want the public to know that we are looking forward to getting into a more easier method in which to conduct these meetings. Right now, we're proceeding on getting the business done that has to be done on behalf of the county. And we look forward to developing this technology further so we can get much more public comment in. With that said, we're going to start with invocation. It's going to be given by Kurt Slavkovsky, employee here at SGTV, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's my honor and pleasure to be here today to give this invocation for our meeting today. I pray that and hope that you are all safe and feeling and are healthy during these turbulent times that we are experiencing. Let us all take a moment to quiet our hearts and minds and put ourselves into the loving hands of Almighty God for the next few moments. And so we will start in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we place ourselves into your loving and merciful hands. We ask, dear Lord, that you would hear our plea for healing, mercy, grace, and perseverance in these very anxious and troubling times. We ask that you would continue to give wisdom and strength to our county commissioners and staff to help with not only the business of the day, but in dealing with this current pandemic that has its grip not only on Seminole County, but throughout our beloved country and world. We give you thanks, Lord, for the spirit of love and service that your people who are on the front lines of this pandemic are giving selflessly of themselves. Please continue to protect them as they continue to fight on tirelessly. We ask that you would console all those who are sick, and especially those throughout the world and here in Seminole County who have lost loved ones from this terrible virus. Lord, you are the resurrection and the life. You have overcome death and darkness, and you offer us a share in everlasting life with you because of your unfathomable love for us. Continue to fill us with every good gift and blessing so that we may rise from the suffering of this pandemic and fight courageously and boldly for the good of one another. For whenever we care for the most vulnerable and the least of our brothers and sisters, we see the face of your beloved Son. We ask all these things through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
In the Father, Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kurt, very much. Now with that, we'll lead into Mr. Alan Harris, our Emergency Management Director, to give us an update on what's going on with the COVID-19 emergency management facilities. Mr. Harris?
Thank you. Alan Harris, Emergency Manager for Seminole County. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I wanted to give you a quick update on the COVID-19 response. Currently, we have 275 patients since this event began with COVID-19. 292 of those have completed their isolation and quarantine. So that's a very good number to report. So less than 100 right now, COVID-19 currently affected here in the county. So that's excellent. 283 people, though, are quarantined in our community. So 283 people are quarantined because they have COVID-19 or they've been in contact with someone with COVID-19. So those individuals are what we call persons under investigation or monitoring. 37 individuals currently are hospitalized in Seminole and Orange County, Seminole County residents related to COVID-19. And unfortunately, 4 of those on ventilators, and we're praying for those individuals for a speedy recovery. Over the last few weeks, we have been helping with food. We've been helping with personal protective equipment. Hundreds of thousands, well, tens of thousands of personal items, personal protective equipment items have been delivered here to the logistics staging area, and those have been delivered to assisted living facilities and hospitals, and they continue to do that. We continue to do that today. Over the weekend, we received 2 semis, over 12 pallets of personal protective equipment, and most all of that has now gone out to assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and hospitals. We've been helping the homeless. We knew at the very beginning in January when we started to plan for COVID-19 and pandemics that there may be an issue related to homeless individuals with COVID-19. And where would they go? Obviously, they wouldn't be able to go to the shelter. So we are housing a few individuals that are homeless that have COVID-19 in separate facilities so that they do not cross-contaminate any other individual that may be fine. So we've got those individuals that are housed, they've got food, thanks to a good partnership with Meals on Wheels. And we've been able to house those individuals and make those individuals comfortable while they go through this battle. We've been working with the Rescue Outreach Mission, and currently the Rescue Outreach Mission has 2 weeks supply of cleaning products, sanitation, sanitizers, hand sanitizers, and we've been working with another nonprofit, Harvest Time International, and Harvest Time International has provided 2 weeks of current supplies right now, including proteins and other types of foods at the Rescue Outreach Mission. So we've been working very hard with that. Chairman, you and I and anyone that's had a press conference have been talking about Florida's natural choice. We understand people are stuck and isolated in their homes, so we've been telling people, go out to the trails, enjoy the trails, and we have seen a huge uptick in that to the point where now Black Bear Wilderness Area is seeing upwards of 5,000 people a day over the weekend, and unfortunately, that wilderness area cannot sustain that. So what we are doing is we are still, of course, keeping Black Bear Wilderness Area. It's one of my favorite trails here in Seminole County. We are keeping that open, but it does have a capacity now. So when the parking lot is full, that is the capacity, and we will have a parks employee out there as well as a roving patrol from the Seminole County Sheriff's Office to maintain the capacity there at the Black Bear Wilderness Area. For anyone that's been on the Black Bear Wilderness Area, they know that the trail is not that wide, so it's almost impossible to keep a 6 feet distance if you're trying to pass someone. It's almost impossible to not congregate in large crowds if there's 5,000 people there. It's a beautiful trail, but I just wanted to let you know that. Other counties and other cities have required the use of masks. We have not done that. We've recommended it, just like the CDC, and to that end, we have outfitted our employees just like we recommended to the public. Of course, we want to make sure that our employees are following the same guidance. So employees that work in close proximity with the public or close proximity with each other. So that would be like fleet working on an engine together, firefighters, public works, traffic engineering, going up to change traffic signals, things like that. Water engineers working on the water plant, working very, very close together. We've outfitted those individuals with reusable masks, and we've provided them with information on how to clean those masks so that they can be protected. Just like we're informing the community to reuse masks, we will, of course, want to make sure that we are doing that as Seminole County employees. So we launched that program on Monday, yesterday, and we've been pushing those masks out, just like we've been pushing out the CDC and the White House medical team's information on how to protect themselves using masks. The last thing I want to report on is that we had great support from the Florida Wildlife Commission and the Seminole County Sheriff's Office over the weekend with their enhanced patrols along the St. Johns River. We had no issues on the St. Johns River last weekend, and of course we had opened 2 boat ramps to see what it would look like. So Wayside and Lake Jessup were open last weekend. So we're very, very happy with that report, and that we had no complaints on the river. So due to that, and due to the Florida Wildlife Commission's and Seminole County Sheriff's Office commitment to continue those enhanced patrols, we will reopen the 3 remaining boat ramps by Thursday. So we're very happy to be able to do that, to allow responsible boat ownership and responsible boat use along the St. Johns River. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. And I would say that, Alan and his group over at the EOC have done fantastic work. Their folks on behalf of the county, I know on behalf of the county commission, we're very proud of the work that you guys are doing over there. And so much time has been spent, trying to handle logistics, trying to get things, handled not only for our county, but our healthcare providers and partners in the community. So, Alan, I sincerely appreciate it very much. And with that, we dropped Commissioner Lockhart for a minute. We're glad to see she's back. We'll move into the regular agenda. Any questions for Mr. Harris from the commission? Seeing none, thank you, Alan. Be well. All righty. Well, next, we're going to move into our public participation portion of the hearing. Pursuant to Florida law, the public has a right to be heard on all propositions except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on ministerial or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statutes. Public comment time on proposition shall be 3 minutes for individuals, 6 minutes for group representatives. The right to be heard during quasi-judicial hearings is governed by Florida law. During this virtual meeting, the public should call 407-665-0808 for public comment on any items on the agenda. Each speaker will be brought into a virtual meeting room one at a time. Proper decorum will be observed. We will now accept public comment on items 1 through 8, consent and regular agenda items. With that, we're going to move to the county manager's consent agenda, items 1 through 5.
Clint, do we have anybody waiting to speak on those items?
There's nobody waiting for those items at this point. There still are some callers in queue.
Okay, let's wait just a moment or two to make sure. And we appreciate everyone's patience as we work our way through this technology.
Here, my biggest concern was dogs barking or someone coming and asking me to make a sandwich.
Amen. Anything queued up, Clint?
Nothing at this point.
Okay. I'll look for the board for action or discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Delory?
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 5 as presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Delory, a second by Commissioner Carey. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will take a roll call vote on these matters so that with the delay in the technology, we make sure we preserve the record. We'll start with Commissioner Carey.
Aye.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Aye.
Commissioner Delory.
Aye.
Commissioner Constantine.
Aye.
Commissioner Zembauer. Aye. Very good. We'll move on to our next item, which is item 6. This item has been deleted and pulled indefinitely. Is there anyone here to make comment on item 6? Seeing none, we will move on to item 7. Item 7 is a QTI resolution for GCR. Tricia, please proceed with this item.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. For your consideration this afternoon, a resolution recommending GCR Incorporated for the Qualified Target Industry Incentive, or the QTI program. As a reminder, the QTI program is administered by the state of Florida and requires 20% local financial support. The incentive is paid out after all jobs are created and all monitoring activities are performed by the state. GCR is a software development company specializing in the design and implementation of custom solutions for public entities. The company operates 7 offices through the United States, and its products assist in many key areas of the economy, including air travel, energy, and government administration. The 250 proposed jobs in this project are comprised of computer programmers, software developers, database administrators, and software engineers. This is a new business to the state of Florida and, of course, Seminole County. The proposed location is 400 International Parkway, located with unincorporated Seminole County. This project involves the creation of 250 new jobs with an average annual wage of $75,000 a year, which is 160% of Seminole County's average annual wage of $46,754. Jobs will be created over a 5-year period beginning in fall 2020. The capital investment associated with this project is $5,564,500 in renovations, equipment, and lease payments. GCR is eligible for a tax refund incentive of $1.2 million for this QTI, or $6,000 per new job. The local financial support for this incentive would be 20% of that, or $300,000. The company is also considering St. Louis, Missouri for this project. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tricia. I appreciate it very much. Is there anyone here from the public that has comment on item number 7?
No comments on item number 7.
Seeing none, we'll move to the board for action or discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the resolution recommending GCR Inc. Be approved as qualified target industry business, and the county requested local financial support of $300,000 over fiscal year 2021 through 2027-28 as the local participation for the QTI and a refund program.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Carey, a second by Commissioner Lockhart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a roll call vote. Commissioner Carey?
Aye.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Aye.
Commissioner Delary?
Aye.
Commissioner Constantine?
Yes.
Commissioner Zembauer, yes. Very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda will be item number 8. Paul Chipok will be presenting number 8, which is a Sunrail Phase 2 North Letter. Paul, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Deputy County Attorney Paul Chipok. You have before you today in your agenda package on page 96 and 97, the Phase 2 North Letter, which is referred to commonly as the T-Bowl letter. You had previously seen this during your workshop on December 10th. As a result of that, you had crafted a letter that from December 12th that went to the Mayor Buddy Dyer as chairman of the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission, who then in turn forwarded that to DOT. DOT responded on January 20th with responses to the questions that you had raised in regards to the letter. And specifically, the letter indicated that DOT does not anticipate any negative impact in the relationship with FTA as it relates to past, present, or future opportunities. Regarding the terminus in DeBerry instead of DeLand, the program capital improvements of Sunrail Phase 2 North, DOT has flexed approximately $34 million in federal highway funds to the Federal Transportation Administration. FDOT, in conjunction with FTA, would be willing to consider the Rail Commission's proposals for utilizing those funds for other qualifying capital improvements. And then the third issue was regarding the CFX agreement on the rail spurs. There are 2 rail spurs, the Aloma Spur and the DeLand Spur. Those 2 spurs will be available for 30 years option which from 2011. So there's still some time for considering of that. The other 4 local government funding partners have each reviewed and indicated an intent to execute the draft letter that's on pages 96 and 97 of your packet. And what that would do is change or utilize 49 miles of the corridor of the 61-mile corridor, and then take those additional funds and have them available for other capital improvements rather than adding the second rail from DeBerry to DeLand at this point in time. So with that, are there any questions? And what we were looking for is FDOT had the Central Florida Rail Commission had taken this up at their January meeting. No action was taken by the Rail Commission at that time. After the meeting, FDOT has asked the jurisdictions to please approve some type of indication that DeBerry would be the northern terminus for the foreseeable future. And that's what this letter does. With that, I'm here to answer any questions, and we're looking for some type of direction to Commissioner DeLaury so he can report back to the Central Florida Rail Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chipbach. Do we have anybody from the public who are desiring to speak on this item?
There are no public speakers for item 8.
Seeing none, we'll move to board action, board discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner DeLaury.
thank you. I appreciate the board allowing this to come up on the agenda. The reason why I wanted this on the agenda was I feel that this is a significant decision that I believe the whole board should weigh in and not just one commissioner. I did not feel comfortable in making that decision for all 5 of us. With that being said, I have several issues with going forward with this. I know that Mr. Chipbach talked about some of the issues, but if you look at the original documents, it talks about 7 years that the local authorities will take over the Sunrail. But that 7 years doesn't start until the Sunrail leg is actually completed from Point Siena all the way up to DeLand. Obviously, we know that it hasn't been up to DeLand yet. It's only in DeBerry. So if you look at the contract, and may have to have several attorneys to view it, that the 7 years hasn't even started. More importantly, I believe there are a lot of other issues that need to be addressed first. This whole thing about stopping in DeBerry, it is taking quite a bit of issues because we should be looking at everything holistically. That's what the transition team should be doing. It shouldn't just be looking at trying to piecemeal this. And it's more important that we actually go to transition phase first to actually see about what needs to happen. There may be even more important issues that need to be taking place before we look at this. And I don't feel comfortable in representing you all unless everyone knows all the issues first. And that's why I wanted to bring this in front of us. I don't feel that we should be supporting this letter until after the transition team actually meets and reports back to us what needs to happen.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLaury. Commissioner Constantine, I believe you're next up.
Well, I just wanted to ask Commissioner DeLaury, he pretty much stated his opinion. I was going to ask if he had supported this letter. Obviously, now he's provided that he wants to wait until the committee discusses it. So if that's the case, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in any risk as to future projects or anything else. We want to continue to support Sunrail.
Thank you, Commissioner Constantine. Commissioner Carey, I believe you're up next.
Yeah, so as I read this, the request came from Volusia County to end this at DeBerry instead of DeLand. And after we met with the DOT secretary and he agreed that the funding could be used for Sunrail and that they would request that we not lose that funding, but it be allowed to be used for it. To me, that's the only thing that this letter really is addressing, that and the spur lines and those type of things. But I think we have a lot of issues between what is in the 7-year agreement that needs to happen before this transitions over to the local governments. Over and above this, I think that this is, as I understand it, this is just addressing the DeBerry versus DeLand, and, you know, and not saying that we're giving up any other rights or rejections or anything else to other issues that are going on, like the tap on, tap off not working. I mean, the system is supposed to be working at the time that it's turned over to the local governments and have proven that it can operate. That was the reason for the 7 years. So am I misunderstanding something, or is that all we're really talking about here?
Consistent County Attorney, Mr. Chiplock, you want to address Commissioner Carey's question?
Yes, I will. Commissioner, you are correct. The nature of this letter is simply the DeBerry to DeLand spur is about over $90 million worth of construction. Of that, the federal share was the 34 million, which has been allocated. If it's going to continue and the DeBerry to DeLand spur is going to be built, Volusia County will have to pony up their share, and DOT will have to pony up their share at this time and continue on with that. Rather than doing that, the proposal on the table is to not build the spur at this time and take those funds and put them towards other capital improvements in Sunrail. And if this letter is approved, then the other subsequent agreements, which we are operating under, will be amended to reflect that the system will operate as a 42-mile system for the time being. But we still have the 61-mile corridor. In that additional 12 miles from DeBerry to DeLand, the figures that were presented show that for that investment of over $90 million, it would only be about another 200 riders.
Right.
So the ridership is not facilitating or justifying the investment at this point in time. And that's why the request was to defer that so we can concentrate our efforts into the transition. Forthcoming, you will see in the next several months, a request for participation in the transition consultant agreement between all 5 local partners, where all of the questions that you're having will be answered and will be quantified by the transition consultant. It's in the RFP draft, which will be facilitated through our purchasing department, and then also each of the local governments will contribute to the funding of the consultant. And these questions in depth will be addressed by the consultant with input from the staffs and going back to the individual commissioners of the local government, 5 local government funding partners at that time too. So the questions you have are valid questions. They are being quantified and will be presented through the transition consultant and addressed through that before the transition actually occurs. But this is just the first step to quantify where the actual corridor that we will concentrate on and operate on for the foreseeable future is occurring.
Okay, I just wanted, based on Commissioner DeLaury's comments and his concerns, I mean, I think we all have concerns about the transition and what happens next. I mean, I think everybody would agree a $90 million investment for 200 riders would be very, very foolish. And so I don't have an issue with the letter being sent because it really is only addressing DeBerry versus DeLand, and all the rest of the stuff that we're going to have to take up at a later date will still be on the table. So I don't have a problem authorizing Commissioner DeLaury to sign the letter on our behalf.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Go ahead, Commissioner DeLaury.
Thank you. The reason why I'm hesitant in signing this letter, because if we sign the letter, now Sunrail stops at DeBerry. That means the 7 years started 2 years ago. We're actually negotiating against ourselves before we even start. because now the Sunrail corridor that's functioning is the one that we're actually talking about in good working order. So once we got to Point Siena, that's when the 7 years started, not when you get to DeLand. The other issue I have is I want to make sure that Volusia County participates financially in the transition piece of it. The last time we did the transition, Volusia County did not participate in the financial piece of the transition team. By doing this piecemeal and not holistically, they're going to have no skin in the game as we move forward financially for this transition team.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Oh, I don't have my hand raised, but I do, but I'll raise it. Actually, I think Mr. Applegate has been trying to get your attention. So I will give my question over to him, and I'll have a question later on.
Great. County Attorney Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Paul's comments.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. How about now?
Yes, sir.
Better.
Thank you. To follow up on Paul's comments, and I can tell you from following the meetings and working with Paul, who's done a great job on the committee getting to this point. In my legal opinion, I don't think we're waiving the legal argument that when the transition period actually starts, it's going to be a very complicated argument if we ever get to that point. There's an argument that it might have started when Osceola was finished. There's an argument that it's not finished until and if and when the DeLand station is up and running, if that ever occurs. So there are a lot of issues related to that. And as Commissioner Carey stated, there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered. And I know Paul, you can chime in on this. I don't think there's been an assertion by even considering this letter that the commission in any way is waiving any argument as to the initiation date for the transition period. But I'd say that Commissioner Delary has raised a number of questions during the process that I think has really helped get us to this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Lockhart?
Yeah, so I was kind of counting on the part of the letter that says until such time as the partners agree upon a specific course of action relative to the remaining 12 miles of track. And I want to make sure that I'm reading that accurately. I see Mr. Applegate nodding his head. As long as this does not do what Commissioner Delary is concerned about, which I would share those concerns if this letter would have that effect. But I feel like this is actually giving us some flexibility in the meantime until those partners come together and make that decision. I just want to make sure that, to Commissioner Delary's point, that we aren't setting ourselves up for a foregone conclusion.
Thank you. Commissioner Carey?
Yeah, so when Secretary Perdue came and met with us and we talked about these issues, our concerns at that point were what happened to the federal funding and also what happens to the transition. And as I recall, he indicated that the federal funding would be preserved and the transition is going to be what the transition is going to be, because there's a lot of things in the original agreement that have not been met that are triggers in order for the transition to even start. So again, based on what this letter is stating, I don't have any issue with Commissioner Delary signing the document as our representative.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. You know, I've reviewed this and I've spoke to the county attorneys and there's been a lot of discussion over the Sunrail. And I think the unfortunate event that we're all facing today, my best guess, this is going to impact this type of decision as well, at least in the short term. But ultimately, I think most of us agree we do have a need for some form of mass transportation. We all know the downfalls or the issues in the original agreement and contract. I as well have a concern signing the letter. in one respect. In the other respect, not so much. So I'm glad I've heard the conversation and the discussion on both sides. I don't believe executing or allowing Commissioner DeLaurie to sign this letter on behalf of the county jeopardizes our position in any way, shape, or form. I think this discussion will be playing out for quite some time on the second half or the second version of this as we move forward. So for what it's worth. So that's all I've got input. Anybody else? Do we have any?
Excuse me, Commissioner Zembauer, we did get one late call from the public for item 8.
Okay, please bring them in. Welcome, caller. Could you state your name and your address for the record, please? Caller, are you online to speak about the Sunrail item?
Yes.
Could you please state your name?
Hello?
Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Yes, it's Nancy Harmon, 752 Pioneer Way in Geneva, Florida.
Welcome, Ms. Harmon. Are you speaking in favor or not in favor of Commissioner DeLaurie executing a letter regarding the Sunrail topic?
I am not in favor of it for the reasons that he stated.
Okay. Anything further to add?
Yes, I'm just concerned about the transition and the cost that is going to be incurred by the Seminole County citizens. I understand why Volusia County is doing what they're doing. It's not worth their expense to allow that Sunrail to go through because of the economic cost and impact it'll be on them. I feel that we're going to have the same impact on us because I don't believe the ridership will ever be enough to pay for itself. Having worked for Amtrak for over 4 years when I was in the federal government, I saw this. I know Amtrak never made a penny, and I'm so concerned that Sunrail is going to do the same, and we will be left holding the dollar.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Harmon.
Commissioner Zembauer?
Thank you so much. You guys have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, Nancy.
Commissioner
Yes,
Zembauer?
yes, Mr. Chipok.
In that, as far as the costs, when we had the workshop in December, from the figures that were presented on the budget figures at that time, if we continue to go to the land, the anticipated annual operating budget or our share of it would be $14.5 million for Seminole County. If it goes only to DeBerry, because of the percentage of track that we will have in the system, the overall system, our funds, our participation actually goes down somewhere between $13 and $14 million. So this does work financially to our advantage because we have a less percentage of overall track in the system.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner DeLaurie.
Thank you. Paul Chipok, in that report, have they given you any numbers on who's picking up the O&M for those additional 12 miles in Volusia County that no one wants?
As I mentioned prior, we have the consultant contract coming forward, and on the key negotiating terms, that is one of the items that is a very large item. With the future key negotiating terms that we're discussing currently between the working group of the 5 local government partners and FDOT. Phase 2 North is one of the issues. Also, positive train control is another issue. And also the state of good repair is a third issue. And then there's a fourth issue in general, which is the freight utilizing the A-line corridor. All of those issues interrelate and affect the cost of the project. So with that, the 12 miles is an issue on the table. How that's going to be resolved will probably interplay as one of the pushes and pulls during the negotiation with DOT as to who is ultimately going to be responsible for that. And as I said, the figures of Seminole County's share right now is estimated at 14.5 if it goes to DeLand. If it goes to DeBerry and the O&M is put back on the local government partners equally, we would be about $14 million. And if DOT picks that up, it would be about $13 million of annual expenses for us. So there's flexibility and variability in that. And I don't have an exact answer because it still has to be negotiated, but it is a key negotiating item that will be addressed.
Thank you. Anything else for the county attorneys? Any further discussion? I'll look for board action.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Delory?
Mr. Chairman, I've always said, not only in our county commission meetings, but also the Sunrail meetings, that we shouldn't be piecemealing this, that it should be a holistic approach. There are a lot of different variables, and the staff has done a very good job in working with all these different variables and moving forward. I also know that the funding partners are trying their best, as well as DOT. But in good conscience, I believe that we should not be looking at this in an item by item. It should be holistically, and all these items should be on the table. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to deny signing this letter to remove that 12 miles from the Sunrail active portion.
Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Carey? You have your hand up?
I had my hand up before Commissioner Delory started because I was going to make a motion to approve it. So we'll see if he gets a second to his motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion.
I'll second for discussion.
We have a second by Commissioner Constantine.
Under discussion, Commissioner Delory, the fact of the matter is that at some point we've got to move forward with Sunrail. And when we're talking about, the decision of the 12 miles, and therefore, I don't have a problem in moving forward. My concern, though, is I understand your position. You are our representative. The way you made the motion, it sounded like you indefinitely. I think that there needs to be a situation where if we do not sign the letter today, that there is some sort of approach that we will be bringing this back and moving forward with it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend my motion then to address this after the transition team reports back to us.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. We have an amended motion now.
I'll second the amendment to the motion.
Okay, we have amended second motion. Any further comment? All right, we'll take a roll call. Commissioner Carey?
No.
Commissioner Lockhart?
No.
Commissioner Delory?
No, yes.
Commissioner Constantine?
Yes.
Commissioner Zembauer, yes. Motion passes 3-2.
Point of clarification,
Please.
Mr. Chairman. So with that, the way the draft consultant agreement is written up right now is so the consultant has some type of direction, is to work up the financials and the information that he or she will be giving back to us based on a 49-mile operating corridor on a total track ownership of 61 miles. So in effect, you have said, no, at this point in time, the consultant has to move forward operating on a 61-mile system total. So I'm just, and then also with that, DOT and Volusia County would now have to be considering ponying up their share to build that second portion of Phase 2 North, which is the DeBerry to DeLand link. So what do you anticipate and how that is going to work?
Thank you, Mr. Chiplock. Commissioner Carey?
So Commissioner Delory is our county representative on this committee, like many of us serve on. And if the majority of the Sunrail Commission vote to accept this and make this request, I think that we're just going to, that it would, and the lawyers can correct me if I'm wrong, but because the Sunrail Board has directed that, it would just show that Seminole County objects. And he wouldn't sign the letter that based on your vote of 3-2. But based on the majority of the action of the Sunrail Authority, who's the one who really has the authority to direct this transition, then I would think that the amendment would go forward. Is that correct?
We've got Bryant Applegate, County Attorney, please.
That is correct.
I have a
So,
question for the attorney on that same issue.
Yes.
Commissioner Delory?
Mr. Applegate, there are some votes that need to be unanimous, especially when it comes to funding. Would this be one of them?
My knowledge, the answer to that would be no.
I can't hear you.
Mr. Applegate, we can't hear you.
I don't believe this letter is, the answer to your question is no. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Okay. Anything further from the county attorneys? Commissioner Carey?
well, in that clarification, I mean, again, the letter is simply talking about the DeBerry to DeLand portion of this. And so, I think I heard Mr. Chiplock say earlier that the other jurisdictions have already approved this. So, I think that, like I said, if the Sunrail Authority decides to move forward with this, even though we're objecting, this is still going to occur. It doesn't have anything to do with the funding part.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think that the Sunrail issue is a much broader discussion that will continue for quite some time. I think that this step of bringing a consultant in to review all this is going to maybe shine a light on a lot of different things, which things are probably going to change tremendously down the road. So I don't necessarily have a problem being the odd person out. Sometimes some of the best votes I've made is I'm the lone vote against. So for whatever that's worth. Anyone else comments on this? Seeing none, passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting ready. We're now going to move into our public hearing agenda. And I will first be looking for a motion for proof of publication.
So moved.
Motion second.
Second.
Roll call. Carey,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Yes.
Delory,
Yes.
Constantine,
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Our staff will present each item for consideration with staff recommendation. The board will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff when presentation has finished. The applicant will have an opportunity to make an audio presentation. The board will have a chance to ask questions once the presenter has completed. People interested in speaking either for or against the project or issue should call 407-665-0808. The call will be answered and placed in a queue. Speakers will be brought into a virtual meeting one at a time. Speakers should state their name, address clearly for the record, and whether you are for or against the item. Speakers will be giving 3 minutes if you're for or against the item. If you're represented by an HOA and you're the official spokesperson for that legally organized group, you'll be given 6 minutes. If a board member has questions regarding the speaker's comment, an opportunity will be given once the speaker's time has expired. Speakers should limit their comments to pertinent information regarding the agenda item under discussion, keeping your comments brief. Once all speakers are heard, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal if necessary. We will close the public hearing and put the matter in the hands of the commission for discussion, recommendation, or motion. Following a motion and a second, there will be board discussion and a vote will be taken. A vote will be taken in a roll call format, starting with District 1. With that said, we will move to have Danny Peddock. Please give us your presentation.
Excuse me, Commissioner Zembauer. Can we bring the applicant and his engineer in to listen to this portion?
Please, absolutely.
The applicant is in. And his engineer is in.
Ms. Peddock, you ready?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Okay on your end?
Good afternoon, Danny Peddock, Planning and Development Division. This request is for a small-scale future land use map amendment from low-density residential and commercial to commercial, and a rezone from R1A single-family dwelling, A1 agriculture, and C1 retail commercial to C1 retail commercial on approximately 1.12 acres located on the west side of Bear Lake Road, north of Paxton Court. The applicant is requesting the future land use map amendment and rezone in order to develop the subject property as a medical office. The subject property currently has a future land use designation of low density residential and commercial and a zoning classification of single family dwelling, retail, commercial, and agriculture. The proposed future land use map amendment and rezone would change the future land use of the entire property to commercial and the zoning to C1 retail commercial. Staff finds the requested commercial future land use designation and C1 retail commercial zoning classification to be consistent with the existing zoning on the majority of the property and the comprehensive plan, and is compatible with the existing trend of development along Bear Lake Road, which is primarily single-family residential with retail commercial, including a convenience store to the north and a retail pharmacy further to the south. In addition to the transportation and traffic information provided in the staff report, Public Works has stated that in lieu of requiring access onto Paxton Court, a single right-in, right-out access onto Bear Lake Road would be permitted with a shared access easement in favor of the existing convenience store property to the north in order to consolidate the existing accesses. The final access will be determined at site plan. Therefore, staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from low-density residential and commercial to commercial, and adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from R1A single-family dwelling, A1 agriculture, and C1 retail commercial to C1 retail commercial for approximately 1.12 acres, located on the west side of Bear Lake Road, north of Paxton Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peddock. Is the applicant here to make a presentation or statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, members of the community. This is Heath Kennedy with Genesis KC Development, representing the applicant, calling here from sunny yet frigid Denver, Colorado. Our address is 2000 16th Street, Denver, Colorado, 80202.
Okay, please proceed.
Sure.
Well, first off, I would like to express my gratitude to the Commission, the Development Services team, and all those behind the scenes that have worked hard to make this meeting happen. I would also like to thank members of the neighboring community for their patience, their willingness to work with our team to identify solutions for the traffic concerns on Bear Lake Road. I've now had two firsts in my career, both on this project. The first being a virtual neighborhood meeting with some of the area residents, and now the second one being this virtual hearing with the Commission. So we're anxious to keep this project on schedule. We'll continue to openly work with staff in the neighborhood as we move through the development process. We do now understand the staff has agreed to allow a right-in, right-out onto Bear Lake from our property. And I think we are willing to accept that condition. That there's I guess a few questions I have in regards to the mechanism as to how this will be documented, what kind of requirements or restrictions and timeframes will be added to the potential redevelopment if and when the convenience store goes through such. But in general, we do support this. So happy to answer any questions regarding the project as you consider our rezoning application. Thank you.
Thank you. And please be patient with us while we're working on our technology. Clint, I can't see my commissioners, nor can I see the callers. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Carey?
So I know that there's been conversation with staff about trying to have a shared driveway access with the convenience store. And I want to know if you've had any conversations with them and if you think that that is going to be something that you'll be able to accomplish if you continue to work on that.
Great question. We have had multiple attempts to reach out to the owner. Unfortunately, he lives in the country of Jordan. It sounds like in discussions with the tenant of the quick serve, he comes to the United States typically in February or March with the COVID shelter-in-place restrictions. He has not been able to come to the U.S. and in discussions with the tenant refuses to have any discussions, negotiations regarding the access without meeting in person. From our standpoint, we are more than willing to continue those discussions. I think the issue we're going to run up against is timing and expecting that we will likely be starting construction before we can have those.
So as a follow-up to that, Mr. Ashby, if you are designing a right-in, right-out, I'm sure engineering would want you to keep it as far away from the intersection there as possible. So would that then be on the area closest to the convenience store? Is that where you will ultimately propose that so that if you do come to a joint use agreement with the adjoining neighbor someday, it'll be easy for that adjustment to be made?
Yes, this is Brian Ashby with Kinley Horn and Associates. Also represent the applicant. Address 189 South Orange Avenue, Suite 1000, 32801. Yes, the plan would be to, work with the site plan and construct the right-in, right-out only in the most appropriate place possible to serve eventually the north parcel, the parcel adjacent to us on the north, so that access can easily be, granted without any major site modifications.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission to the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, let's go to our public input.
We have roughly 23 people for the public.
Okay. Let's start with the first one. Good afternoon. This is Chairman Zembauer. Please state your name and your address for the record and whether you are in opposition or in favor of item number 9.
Hello, my name is Randy Ludholm. I'm
Go ahead.
Ladarius Sanders. My home address is 5958 Paxton Court, Apopka, Florida, 32703, and I am opposed.
Okay. And do you have anything else to add, sir?
Yes.
Please.
muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Please go ahead.
Just for the record, I have two small children, and I do believe that by bringing the clinic near the entrance of our home, it's just going to increase foot traffic, as well as different individuals that are not from our area. It's also the beginning of the Seminole County Trail, which, again, there are lots of children, lots of family members that bike in our particular area, and I do believe that that's going to increase traffic, which could increase the risk of a child being hit by a car, as well as you have different individuals that are not from our area that could roam through our neighborhoods. So it's more of a safety issue is what's my greatest concern. I really do think that plot of land would be better used for residential housing. You could put up to 4 homes, single-family homes on that particular plot of land versus adding more commercial-based infrastructure there that I do believe will increase traffic. And not to mention that there is a huge issue with traffic currently on that particular street, Bear Lake, as it enters the 414 when you get towards the 5 o'clock hour. So I think it's just going to become a complete chaos with having more traffic that are not just trying to get to the house and back in our particular area. And so I really would appreciate if they were to convert that to residential zoning as opposed to a commercial base.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Our next caller. Clint, you want to bring in the next caller?
Caller is in.
Good afternoon. Please state your name and your address for the record. Hello?
My name is Jared Davis, and I'm at 6024 Jessica Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Are you in favor or are you opposed to this project?
I'm opposed to it.
Okay, please continue. You have 3 minutes to give us your information and details.
No, I just think the traffic would be too much for my area. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. Are you here to speak in favor?
Yes, my name is Amber Victor, and I live at 6032 Jessica Drive.
Please proceed. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Oh, I can't actually hear. It sounds like somebody else is talking. I'm opposed to this being turned into commercial area and the medical plaza being put there, a medical building being put there. My child's bus stop is approximately 30 yards from where they want to put this. I have 2 small children. I live in Bear Lake Woods. There's multiple children that congregate there in the morning, and the traffic there is already terrible, so I'm opposed to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next caller, please. Welcome, caller. Please state your name and address and please spell your name. Caller, you're on the line. Do we have a caller on the line? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Clint, please. Welcome. Good afternoon. Are you with us?
Yes. Lisa Carrera, 5943 Paxton Court.
Please spell your name.
Florida.
Please spell your name for us, ma'am.
Lisa Herrera, P as in Peter, E-R-E-I-R-A, 5943 Paxton Court.
Thank you. And are you speaking in favor or opposition?
I'm against the project.
Okay. Is there any information?
And I believe,
Go ahead.
again, the traffic is too much for this area.
Okay. Anything else?
I just think it's a safety hazard for the children also.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. You're in the queue. Please give us your name and your address, and then spell your name, please.
Roy Keeley. Last name Keeley, Keeley. Address 6068 Jessica Drive.
Thank you. And are you speaking in favor or in opposition?
Opposition?
Okay. Please proceed. You'll have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you for your time. Just would like to say that I think it would be very detrimental for the Bear Lake community, especially the Bear Lake Woods residential area and residential community, trying to put a commercial building, alleged dialysis center in front on a very busy 2-lane road, which is Bear Lake. It's been that way for years. It's only gotten worse. And trying to put that type of facility out front where it backs up every morning, trying to leave for work already as it is, much less adding another entity of a building of that size and of that nature, people going in and out of it, and then potentially using our entrance as a exit could only harm what we have, what we built our lives around, and our community. Not only to our property values as well, but to what we have as Bear Lake Woods. I leave it to you guys to make the right decision for the citizens and for our community, and not just big business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next caller, please. You're in the meeting. Please state your name and address, and then spell your name, please.
Hi, Andrew Schneer, SCHNEIER, 5904 Paxton Court, Apopka 32703.
Thank you. And are you here to speak in favor or opposition?
Opposition to the measure.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
I'm sure I'm echoing many comments of those who spoke before me, but don't think it's appropriate to have this medical facility that abuts a residential neighborhood. It's not consistent with the kind of the residential nature of the area. And I looked at other DaVitas, that's I think who the proposed tenant is. None of them are abutting residential areas. They're all shopping centers or standalone with their own parking lot. It's just not the right place for it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, next caller, please. Good afternoon. Please state your name and your address, then please spell your name.
Sure. It's Benjamin Loving. That's BenJamin Loving, Loving. My address is 5938 Paxton Court, Apopka, Florida.
Welcome. Are you here to speak in favor or opposition, sir?
In opposition.
Okay, please proceed, sir.
Thank you. I'm not sure what's already been said. Unfortunately, we can't all be there today, and I'm not getting any audio from SGTV. So I'll try to focus on the issues regarding this rezoning application. I may repeat things that have already been said, but I guess that's the point. I'm sure the other citizens against this rezoning have already raised the issues of traffic. It's bad now, and it's only going to get worse if this property is rezoned to commercial. And that's whether it's a medical facility or a Starbucks, any commercial property. My neighborhood, the Enclave at Bear Lake, is very concerned about traffic on Bear Lake Road, and more importantly, the potential traffic on Paxton Court. Paxton Court is a cul-de-sac, a virtual dead end. Any commercial facility will cause excess traffic on a street where children can now play safely. The proposed facility is for individuals with renal failure, receiving dialysis. More often than not, these individuals suffer from visual impairment and often diabetic confusion. I'm speaking from experience. My mother was on dialysis. I lost her about 10 years ago. I'm very familiar with what these facilities are like. Sometimes the patients drive themselves, or they take some sort of public/medical transport. But getting back to what the commission can actually consider today.
Please, thank you.
I'm sure each of you have driven down Bear Lake Road. Yeah, I'm sure each of you have driven down Bear Lake Road at some point. There are very few commercial properties. There's basically the convenience store on the south end. That's been there for, I think, over 30 years. And on the north end, there's a 7-Eleven and a Shell station. That's it. There's a couple of churches, but they're not commercial properties in between. This property is located next to the convenience store, and right now just has a couple of very large oak trees. It's directly across from the start of the Seminole Trail, and it's a scenic place. It's a place that it's basically the entrance to Seminole County, right there. There's a reason that Seminole County's motto is Florida's natural choice. We want to be what is best for the community, and the commission has a difficult job to weigh the best interest of the community versus the private interest of the property owner. The request to rezone, in this case, is not in the public interest. Instead, it's solely for the personal interest of a non-Seminole County resident, and that's harsh, but it's a true statement. You have a Colorado corporation and a non-Seminole County property owner applying for the rezoning, and on the other side, you have the local Bear Lake community against it.
Sir,
there is a petition online. I'm not sure if you...
Sir, we're going to have to ask you to start wrapping it up. You're out of time. Go ahead and finish, if you can quickly,
Okay.
please.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, no one that actually knows about this property that lives near it wants it. And that's the people that receive notice, actual notice, 300 feet from it. If more of the community actually knew about it, I'm sure there'd be more people calling in today. I hope that you guys can do what our motto is. Keep Seminole County Florida's natural choice. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Be well. Okay, next caller, please. Good afternoon. Your name and address, and please spell your name.
Hi, my name is Anthony Cotagnola. I live at 5963 Paxton Court, and the last name is spelled Cotignola.
Thank you, sir. And are you here to speak in opposition or in favor?
I'm opposed to this.
Okay. If you would, please proceed. Keep your comments directly related to the project itself. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Sure. So during the planning and zoning meeting that we had on February 5th, they had mentioned that they wanted to change the land to 100% C1 because it would match the surrounding areas. Well, most of the surrounding area is, R1A residential, single family dwelling land. So if you were to go from just the west side of Bear Lake Road north, about a mile and a half, that's 25 million square feet of land. There's only about 52,000 square feet that's zoned for commercial use. That's less than 1% of the land. So, this is just showing that this is a residential area. And if you cross the street across Bear Lake to the east side, and the same thing go up to McNeil Road, it's another 14 million square feet of land, and there's only 70,000 square feet of commercial property, and it's less than 0.5% of commercial property. So this is residential property, and like the first caller, I think what Darius said, that commercial lot should be residential. You could put 3 or 4 homes on that site. So I'm very much opposed to this. At the same meeting, the company was asked what kind of traffic what kind of vehicles, what kind of traffic would there be? And they weren't able to tell us if there would be any emergency vehicles, what kind of really traffic would be there. So to me, the research is incomplete, and it's irresponsible to try to push this through when you don't even know what kind of vehicles you're going to bring to this residential community, both north and south of where you're planning to put your development. And lastly, my last point is also at that meeting on February 5th, the landowner said that she's been trying to sell that property for the last 18 years. My argument is, if you've been trying to sell the same piece of land for 18 years as a commercial property, maybe it's not a commercial property, and you really need to look at changing it to residential property, and then residential land, and then maybe try to sell it that way. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next caller, please. State your name, address, and spell your name, please.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Ledholm, and that's C-I-N-D-Y, Ledholm, L-E-A-D-H-O-L-M.
And you're speaking in favor or in opposition?
In opposition.
Please proceed.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time. I ask that the Seminole County and its commissioners today to issue a denial order relating to the request to rezone the proposed Bear Lake rezone project. I live in Bear Lake Woods. I am a mother of 2 children. One is a senior this year, and I have a kindergartner starting in August. Bus stops are a concern. The safety of our children is a concern. Obviously, the current traffic and proposed future traffic is a concern. Located right from the proposed project is also a bike and jogging trail. In order for me to go across the street with my 5-year-old, we have to cross the street to get to the trail. Nor do I feel that commercial business should be entering in or out of our residential areas, if it's Jessica Drive or if it's Paxton Drive. And of course, there's the risk and drop in property value as well.
Okay. We thank you very much, ma'am.
Absolutely. Again, I thank you, and I ask that you not support this project and that you sign the denial order relating to the rezoning of this property.
Thank you, ma'am. Be well. Next caller, please. Name and address for the record, and please spell your name.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Thompson, last name Thompson. Jessica, it's 5980 Jessica Drive, Apopka, 32703. And I'm opposed to the amendment.
Okay. Please proceed.
I just want to reiterate again what other people have said, that I believe that this area is meant to be more residential than it is commercial. I'm also very concerned about the traffic, and it seems like not a complete plan for how that traffic is going to be managed coming in and out of the facility. I'm also concerned about water contamination. On the back side of the property, there is a wall for the Bear Lake Woods neighborhood that is adjacent to our retention pond, and that retention pond drains directly into Little Bear Lake, and I'm concerned that possible medical contamination could go into that retention area and then go into our waterways. I'm also very concerned about the bus stop that's at the entrance of our neighborhood. We have 2 children that will be riding the bus. I'm concerned about our property value, and that in putting a commercial business in front of residential, it will lower our property value. And I'm concerned about the bike trail and traffic impeding upon people getting to that safely, as well as possibility of emergency vehicles coming at any time to take out people who are medically unstable after dialysis or during dialysis. So I would like for the commission to vote against it.
Thank you, ma'am. Next caller, please, for the record, your name and address, and please spell your name.
Hello, my name is Linda Rossell, R-O-S-S-E-L, 2476 Fawn Run, Oviedo.
Please proceed, ma'am. Are you here to speak in opposition or in favor?
I concur with the residents of that area and oppose the project. I support the local residents' opinions on this issue since they're directly affected by it and they're the experts in their area. Residential input is critical to any land use changes and should be heeded, as the commissioners represent local citizens and citizens rely upon our commissioners to act in their best interests. As a comparison, and as you all know, there is also a land issue happening with the Econ River Wilderness area, which is generating tremendous public.
Ma'am, I would.
Yes,
Ma'am,
I understand, but it's a comparison.
keep on the topic, please.
I am. This is part of the comparison sentence,
Okay.
which has generated tremendous public and media interest. And
Ma'am,
we hope that in all
ma'am,
such
I'm not
cases,
going. Ma'am, I'm going to remove you from the line. Please stick on the topic of the project we're here about
I
today.
am trying to, but I am trying to make a comparison.
Well,
And the next sentence, we hope that in all such cases, including the rezone on Bear Lake Road, that commissioners seriously take into consideration all input from the citizens you represent. Public input on all such projects is critical in this and all such important issues, especially during the public comment section of these public meetings. Thank you.
thank you. Next caller, please.
Please.
I am. This is part of the comparison
Okay.
which has generated tremendous public and media interest. And
Ma'am?
hope that in all
Ma'am, I'm not going to remove you from the line. Please stick on.
Clint, do we have the next caller? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Your name and address for the record, please, and please spell your name.
Hi, my name is Sarah Martinez. That's Martinez. And my address is 5967 Paxton Court, Apopka, Florida 32703.
And are you here to speak in favor or opposition?
Opposition.
Okay, please proceed.
Just a few things to point out. I've been watching online, so I've heard all the prior callers. So I want to reiterate the traffic issue, but mainly I want to point out a few things. In the land use map, which it shows the property to the south of Paxton Court, just want to point out a couple of things. I know it's listing that the property is listed as agriculture and commercial, but that piece of property is owned by the Homeowners Association of the Enclave at Bear Lake, so there would be no reason for it ever to be utilized as a commercial property. It's actually, I think, an excess holding pond for the summer months when we get a lot of rain. I also want to hit on the topic that in the background report, the staff found that the proposed project was compatible with the surrounding trends of development in the area, and that the uses along Bear Lake Road are primarily single-family and retail commercial. And I have to disagree with that statement that they include retail commercial being a primary use of Bear Lake Road. I actually went to the property appraiser website and exported into Excel a spreadsheet of all the addresses along Bear Lake Road. Removing duplicates, the portion of Bear Lake Road between 414 and 436, there are 195 parcels. Of those parcels, there are 4 churches and 1 convenience store. The rest of them are houses. So I don't think that that would support that retail commercial is one of the primary uses along Bear Lake Road. I also want to point out that the proposed dialysis clinic is actually, this is not a new business. So this is not, I know on the application there was pointed out that it supported economic ventures of the county, but however, this is a relocation of a business. They are simply closing down shop in one location, that is on 436, and moving it to, potentially wanting to move it to Bear Lake Road. There's not creation of new jobs in that move, and we've been told that the number of dialysis chairs is exactly the same as the current location. I also would like to point out that the commercial properties, in my opinion, the only commercial property is the little convenience store that has been there for over 30 years. That serves the direct needs of the Bear Lake area.
Go ahead. You got 30 seconds.
It serves the direct needs of the Bear Lake. Thank you. It serves the direct needs of the Bear Lake area, whereas a dialysis clinic is going to pull in outside of the Bear Lake area. It does not meet the direct needs of our current residents in this area. The last point is just that, unfortunately, with the issues with getting in touch with the convenience store owner, I just don't think it's possible to have proper access off of Bear Lake Road and the amount of time,
Ma'am, you're out of
as
time.
stated by the applicant, the amount of time they're wanting to get started. Thank you for your time, commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, next caller, please. Name and address, and please spell your name.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, you're on. We need your name and address, and please spell your name.
Mr. Chairman, before she gets
Sorry
started,
about that. There is.
must have their SGTV playing in the background of their room, and they need to mute, if they're going to listen to it, they need to just mute that, because that's what the bleed back is, I think.
Yeah. Clint, if you would please handle that in the queue. I'm sorry, ma'am. Please proceed with your name and address again, and please spell your name.
Oh, that's okay. Katrina Shaddix, KATRINA SHADIX, address 1133 Covington Street, Oviedo 32765. And yes, there's a lag time with the, I understand now what was going on. There's about a 30-second delay with the
And you're here to speak in favor or opposition?
monitor. I'm going to support the area residents and speak in opposition of.
Okay, please proceed.
All right. And my first comments concern the endangered and threatened wildlife issue. There's under that heading, it states that based on a preliminary analysis, there may be endangered and threatened wildlife on the subject property. A listed species survey may be required prior to site plan or final engineering approval. So first, it states that a listed species survey may be required prior to final approval. And if the commissioners decide to vote against the citizens and approve this, I'm asking if that can be changed to state that a species survey shall be required prior to final approval instead of may be required. So that would be my first request if you go forward with the zoning change. My second issue, in looking at the aerial map provided, the proposed medical office would be built in an area where bears are known to travel through and to drink from that pond right there in the back. They also are known to eat from the trash. There's unsecured dumpsters and trash cans in that area. So if y'all do go through with changing this zoning, will the builder, developer, or business owner be required to have a bear-proof dumpster? And who would be responsible for paying for it? And when would the dumpster be required to be placed on the property? My third concern is that there are several very old and mature thriving oaks on the property. So is the developer planning to cut all of those trees down and turn it into a sandlot before building something? Or is the developer going to try to keep some or all of those trees in place? And I ask that because, well, if any or all of the trees are to be destroyed, can the builder wait until after spring? Because right now we have millions of nesting babies living in trees. And I think since we are Seminole County, or Florida's natural choice, I think there's a moral obligation to nature to wait until after nesting season is over before any type of construction proceeds forward, whether it's for houses or the medical facility. Again, I hope you don't approve it. I stand with the citizens in opposition, but if you do go forward, those are my very legitimate concerns regarding the nature on that property. And just out of curiosity, I was wondering, I don't know if the owner is on the phone, but have they considered selling the property for it to be made into a passive park for the residents? Or they could even donate it to Conservation Florida for a very large tax write-off. But the main safety thing, I think pedestrian bridges need to be built that area.
Shaddix, you're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Next caller, please. Please state your name and address, and please spell your name. Caller, you're on.
Yes.
Your name,
Yes.
please.
My name is Ratna Joshi. RATNAJOSHI.
Okay. And
Can you hear
your,
me?
yes, your address, please.
5920 Paxton Court, Apopka, 32703.
Yes, ma'am. Are you calling in favor or in opposition?
Opposition.
Okay. You are all set. Please proceed.
Okay, so my agenda number is 9. It is the rezoning, and I am opposed to it because it's mostly residential area, and my main concern is my kids' school bus stop, because my kids go to school and come home from school, and they usually walk from all the way that place to my house. And if there is a dialysis center going to build, there will be construction. Lots of big machines will be there, and it's hard for, it's going to be hard for my kids to walk alone. And the other thing is, once it's built up, still there will be lots of traffic, 911 and all those things, and it will be very dangerous to kids to walk there. And my other concern is it's mostly residential, so it's like not that much traffic here. But once it's gonna be the center build, it's gonna be so many traffic, and other things will be there. So I'm really, really opposed to that.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And they usually walk from all the way.
Caller, please turn your television off. Clint, let's bring another caller in. Would you ask these callers to turn their TV or radios off that's in the background?
Yes,
We're getting all these people.
Yes, Commissioner. We did ask them before putting them into the waiting room. We have no way to talk to them once they're in the waiting room.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Caller, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please. Your name and address. Yes, name and address, and please spell your
Scott
name.
Harris. Scott Harris, Harris. Address is 5961 Jessica Drive. That's in Bear Lake Woods. I'm opposed to the project for a number of reasons that have already been stated, including traffic. You know, we've got the trail across the street. You know, people use this as a cut through already from 436 to Maitland Boulevard. They're doing, 40, 50 miles an hour through here. It's already congested. They're talking about 18 to 24 stations at this dialysis clinic with up to 4 attendants per station. Well, that's 96 employees on the high end. Even if they only had 2 attendants per station on the low end, that'd be 36. Where are they all going to park? In my neighborhood? The other thing is, because of the increased traffic, we've got a lot of panhandlers now and out here on these corners, and that'll just get worse. There's also talk of access not only from the Paxton easement, but also from the Jessica Drive easement, because there is an easement there as well. Now, we have a bus stop out here, too, right here on Bear Lake Road and Jessica Drive, where our neighborhood kids have to, gather in the mornings and in the afternoons. We've got enough dangers there. The other thing is the drainage that was mentioned before. This retention pond, I've spent a lot of time retrieving skateboards and balls out of the sewers around here. And they're tied in with the retention pond, and they drain directly into Little Bear Lake. So that could be a problem. There's no doctor's offices, there's no hospitals, there's no nursing homes, there's no assisted living centers, nothing like that anywhere around here. Normally, they put a facility like this around a medical community. We don't have a medical community around here. We don't even, it just doesn't make sense. It's not conducive to the area. I think there's plenty of existing vacant brick and mortar locations along roads that are already equipped to handle the traffic and parking and that have proper drainage. So, you know, and there's going to be more. I mean, there's businesses shutting down, Amazon's taking over, retail locations closing all over the place. Why not make use of some of these existing brick and mortar locations instead of building something like this right in our neighborhood? You know, some more conducive type environments, you know, retail environments might be like how about a bicycle shop or right across from the trail, or maybe a smoothie shop, a pizza shop, or an ice cream shop, or maybe even you know, hair and nail salon or something. You know, it's just not conducive to our area. You guys need to take all these things into consideration and realize Bear Lake Road's not designed to carry all the traffic that this is going to require. I mean, you know, at the low end, we're talking about 36 employees. We're all, you know, just the employees. Now, we haven't started bringing in the patrons to the dialysis clinic yet. Where are they going to park? You know, there's no bus stop around here. It's not like they're going to be able to take the bus or the train.
Sir,
so I'd say nick the clinic.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, next caller, please. Your name and address, and please spell your name. Caller?
Christopher Bowman, 595. Can you hear me?
We can hear you barely.
Yes, Christopher Bowman, 5951 Paxton Court.
Spell your name, please.
Bowman.
And you're calling in favor or opposition?
Strongly opposed.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So yeah, first, again, I'll just reiterate what everybody's already said. Bear Lake Road is already a headache from a traffic perspective at all times of the day. Any additional development in this corridor is going to make that incredibly worse. Certainly, I've heard some discussions about the right in, right out. I don't know that that's feasible based on the complications with the current tenant there at the convenience store. But not only that, if you're coming north from Maitland Boulevard onto Bear Lake Road, the likelihood that somebody coming for a dialysis or an employee there is probably going to make an illegal turn into that facility just because we're constrained with that 2-lane road, and I doubt we'll be discussing a barrier there in the middle to avoid that. But the biggest concern I have is certainly a public safety perspective. Any north entrance or south exit or any roads to this facility that would impact Paxton Court or the Jessica Drive area is certainly going to have a secondary effect with our kids. There's a lot of children in these neighborhoods running around, quite young. So I'm really concerned about the safety there. And certainly I think a couple of folks spoke about the not fitting in with the area, which I strongly agree with as well. There's really only 1 or 2 commercial businesses in this corridor, and I think that's probably enough. So thank you for your time, and certainly I hope you guys make the right decision.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder for the callers, we've got still several waiting to come into the queue. Just a quick reminder, try to keep your comments brief. If you have something new to add that has not already been added by one of the community members or neighbors or callers on this matter, please do so. With that, we'll ask your name and address, please.
Mary Ann Davis.
Spell your name, Miss Davis.
MaryAnnDavis.
And your address?
6024 Jessica Drive.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you calling in opposition or in favor?
Opposition.
Okay. If you'd be kind enough to turn your television or radio, whatever you have going on, then please proceed.
I already did. Thank you. Hey, just to reiterate really what everybody else has already said, I live in Bear Lake Woods, and the traffic is very difficult already. So adding extra traffic is just too much, I think, for this area. Also, I have a young child. And again, with the trail being across the street, we use it very often. It would be the entrance to the dialysis center would be directly across from the entrance to the trail. And it's already very difficult to get across on a bike with the backup of Bear Lake Road's traffic as it is. So that, to me, would be a big hindrance. And also with both of the neighborhoods where they're going to put the exits it would be, I know Bear Lake Woods as well as Enclave across. We both are dead end streets, but I feel that traffic would come through the neighborhood. I know both of the neighborhoods are heavily populated with children. So when you have kids riding bikes in the neighborhood or, playing in the street, which we all know kids do in cul-de-sacs, that added traffic, which people don't adhere to the 25-mile-an-hour zones. People already sometimes speed through not knowing that they're dead end roads. I just feel like it would be just that add-on traffic. That's just not necessary in our small neighborhoods. And that is all. I appreciate you considering.
Thank you, ma'am. Very well. Just a quick reminder, if folks who are calling in could mute their televisions, it gives a lot of feedback. It's hard for the commission to hear and understand because it does give us feedback in our ability to hear and understand. Also would encourage and remind everyone who's calling in, keep your comments directly to the project, keep them concise and brief. If you have new evidence or new information or details to add that have not already been added, please do so. With that, please, your name and your address, please. Caller?
Yes, it's Aaron Hines. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, address, please.
6093 Jessica Drive.
And spell your name, please.
Aaron, Aaron, last name Hines, Hines.
Thank you, sir. Do you call in favor or opposition?
Opposition.
Okay, please proceed, sir.
Yes, so, I think a lot of the points were already reiterated by the community, but I have some more points to make. One, clearly high density area for families, especially families like myself. We have 2 small children, 6 years old, 3 years old. We take advantage of the Wekiva Trail that's right across the street. It's a nightmare to cross the street now. As you're aware, there's a young girl killed in the last couple of years right around the corner on 414, cycling with her family, killed by a driver. The school bus stop right at the end of the street, I go there every morning. Just before COVID-19 happened, a little kid almost got killed, or hit rather, because drivers do not follow the speed limit or even watch for school buses. I can't imagine what that would be like when you compound the traffic. Another concern, which Commissioner Constantine, I know this is an issue dear to your heart, the pond, the retention pond, which we enjoy fishing in with my son, it's probably going to be subject to runoff and pollution and most likely a lot of litter, trash. That's a big concern because it connects to Little Bear Lake. Additionally, this is an area of Seminole County. We're not Altamont Springs, but we're unincorporated Apopka. So we rely on Seminole County Sheriff. I can tell you they do not come out here on this side of our area that often, or as often as I'd like. The speed limits are not monitored as much as I'd like. So if you can imagine the traffic increasing, that's only going to get worse. It's a nightmare to leave in the mornings. I work downtown Orlando. In the evenings, it's just as bad. It's going to cause a lot of problems, and I fear that there's going to be fatalities given the trail right across the street. It's currently highly populated due to the COVID issue, but even in normal times, the local families use it a lot. So this is a big concern. I'm concerned about this being pushed through quickly. I think it should be delayed given the COVID-19 problem, and for the commissioners to highly consider how this impacts the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller, your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Robert Shomo, 9234 Longfellow Place, Apopka.
Please
I live in the Bear Lake Woods neighborhood.
Please spell your name, sir.
S-H-O-M-O.
Thank you.
Robert Shomo, S-H-O. I'm opposed to the proposal.
All right.
For all the same reasons that everyone has been stating,
Understood.
as we have small children that live in the neighborhood. So for all the same reasons, I'm going to keep it short and to the point.
Thank you.
It's just for everyone's safety and the traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Be well.
Impacts voters. Thank you.
Next caller, please. Your name and address for the record.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Steve Bell.
Robert Shumo, 9234.
Sir, please, can you turn your TV off?
Live in the Bear Lake Woods neighborhood.
Pardon me?
Please spell your name. SHOMO. Thank you. Robert
Sir,
Shumo,
we need you.
To the proposal.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. For all the same reasons that.
Sir, is your television running?
No, the public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We can't hear the caller when you have that running. All we get is back
Yeah, I
feed.
just turned it off.
Yes, thank you.
Understood.
All right, and again now, your name and address, sir?
Yeah, my name is Steve Bell, Bell. The address is 6084 Jessica Drive. I am on the board of the Bear Lake Woods HOA.
Okay, sir, are you calling?
Opposition to the
Okay.
project.
All right,
First
we're
of all,
going
I want to object. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, I object to this meeting being held in a virtual reality setting. A decision of this importance with an impact on the local neighborhood should have been postponed until a public hearing could have been rescheduled with all interested parties in attendance. That way we'd be able to show the schematics and also drop off our petitions. So I just wanted to make that to be my first point.
Sure, and I think I'll speak on behalf of my fellow commissioners. At least my office has received the petitions as late today. So rest assured, we've received those communications and emails. So please proceed, sir.
Okay. Good. And then I think the staff was in error. One of the points that they brought out was that the future land use and zoning designations of the surrounding areas are as follows. And it goes on to say that on the north side is Jessica Drive, and the future land use is low density residential and commercial zoning. I don't see where any commercial zoning is available anywhere in our neighborhood. And that would be true of the south end of the project on Paxton Court. And they also mention that it has commercial zoning capabilities, and I see nowhere on that in that neighborhood where there's any commercial possibility of any building going on. So I do believe this staff was in error in that designation. Third point is you do have, like, you're going with a right in, right out on this property, but Bear Lake Road in that area is designated with double yellow lines. That's even in front of one of the subdivisions, Paxton Court, that you approved of. I'm sorry, the Enclave approved of several years ago. And that's supposed to be a right in, right out also, but it's turned out to be pretty much a left in, left out. And people are constantly crossing that double yellow line illegally. And they're going to be doing that on the very same thing if this new project goes through. So one question I have regarding that, because I know this has come up, and I didn't see this on the application, but has Seminole County, has the board, has the staff done a volume of traffic study for Bear Lake Road, specifically Bear Lake Road and 414? I haven't seen one.
Good. Continue, sir.
Okay. So that is pretty much all I have to say. Is I do know that the owner of the property in question have a easement that goes into Jessica Drive, and I just want to make sure that the county commissioners ensure that that's not going to be used as a carrot or anything like that by the owner to the to DeVita to allow traffic.
Sir, we're out of
Chestnut
time.
Drive.
We need you to wrap it up, sir.
Well, that's it. So, like, again, I'm in opposition, and
Thank you, sir.
I think this is a really bad idea.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Next caller, please, your name and address. Spell your name, please.
Yes, my name is Leanne Bowman, and I live at 5951 Paxton Court, Apopka, Florida, and my last name is Bowman.
And you're calling in favor or opposition?
Opposition.
Okay, and has somebody from your household called already today?
My husband did.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure I didn't have names mixed up here. Go ahead and proceed, please.
Okay, I am actually the one who sent over the petition earlier today, and I've actually sent over a couple of different emails outlining my point, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. I just wanted to highlight what the Planning and Zoning Board had said when they actually recommended that you guys approve this. They said that they found that C1 zoning classification to be consistent with land development code and compatible with trend of development in the area. And they also said that the property directly to the north of the subject property, that's the quick serve, is commercial. So rezoning this particular commercial or parcel to fully commercial would be in line with the surrounding area. Both of those reasons that the Planning and Zoning Board had given to you guys to approve this are actually false. While the direct northern land is actually commercial, if you look at all of the other land around, it's residential. On top of that, if you look at that northern building, the quick serve, the building was built in 1968, and since 1968, all of the surrounding areas directly adjacent to that particular property have been changed from zoning agricultural to residential. So the trend in the area is actually to residential, not to commercial. So this wouldn't really be in line with the rest of the development in the area. On top of that, yes, there are concerns with traffic, but I also want to speak to the right in, right out. From what I understand, the code enforcement is going to maybe allow a right in, right out, but that's subject to site plan approval. So at this time, we can all assume there is only going to be one way to get in, which means they're going to have to exit onto Paxton Court. So that's exiting directly onto a residential neighborhood street. Adding more traffic to that area, adding traffic to the area where Maitland Boulevard and Bear Lake Road, that intersection is, which is already backed up several times a day. So I respectfully ask that you guys do not vote to rezone this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, next caller, your name and address, please, and please spell your name. Caller? Caller, you're on. Clint, go ahead and queue up another one, please. Good afternoon, you're on. Your name and address, please.
Yes, let me mute my TV real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Andre Klass, ANDRE KLASS. My address is 3250 Retreat View Circle, City of Sanford. I wish to speak in opposition of this item.
Opposition, okay. And please keep your comments and topics immediately to this application and this product, sir. Please proceed.
You got it. So a lot of public participants that have been in discussion on this item have already covered both.
Clint?
It looks like he dropped. We'll bring the next caller in.
Please. Good afternoon. Your name and number, please.
Hang on one second.
Immediately to this application and this product. Okay, bring in the next caller, and hopefully we don't have things running in the background. Clint, we'll leave that one on hold for a minute.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. Your name and address, and if you could spell your name, please.
It's Randy Ledholm.
Kimberly Buchheit, 25.
Lead.
Oh, hold up one second. Clint, do we have two at the same
We
time?
got two people on the same call.
Okay, let's try that again. Name and address again, please, for the record. Caller?
Randy Ledholm.
Yes, sir. Spell
Leadholm.
And your address, sir.
6056 Jessica Drive.
Okay, sir, and you're calling in favor or opposition?
Opposition.
Okay, sir. Please proceed.
Okay, yeah, I think this is more so a stepping stone into an area that the neighborhoods directly adjacent to it do not want to go. This is more of a zoning effort that is going to open up a can of worms when it comes to the traffic and safety of our neighborhood. Within that proposed zoning space, you've got just about 200 homes that have been added in the last 20 years. And I think we're all going to be dramatically impacted by any activity that's not geared and oriented towards residential space or services directly to us as residents of Seminole County. I think, if we get into the facility itself as a medical facility, there's really nowhere for that in this area. There's no precedent on Bear Lake Road itself to have any kind of facility like that. Any of the businesses that do exist on Bear Lake Road are, again, directly servicing the community and are either retail in the sense that it's a CVS pharmacy or it's a convenience store. So, again, I am in opposition, and I would hope that you vote on this measure on behalf of the residents of Seminole County, not businesses from outside the area.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next caller, your name and address for the record, please, and please spell your name.
Hello? I'm getting a lot
Yes.
of feedback. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. We hear you.
Kimberly Buchheit,
Right.
252 Spring Run Circle, Longwood, Florida. The
Spell
last
your-
name is spelled Buchheit, pronounced Buchheit. Thank
Okay.
you for hosting this under these difficult conditions. It's very hard to participate, just so you know. I looked at this project in the field. I'm opposed to it. I'm impressed with all of the reasons that the local residents have given you. I don't need to repeat those. The most striking thing from looking at this in the field is that commercial development is not compatible with the residential that's established in this area. But more importantly, the unresolved access issue is of concern, and the cross-access issue on another property that would need to give permission is a problem. So I suggest that you defer making a decision until that's clearly decided how that's going to happen. Because if there's only a right in and a right out, people are going to need to make U-turns or go through the neighborhoods and turn around to make the proper movements. So, also, Chair, would you indulge a question for clarification about the agenda today? Hello?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Okay. When I called in earlier, I asked a question about, there's an item on my agenda that is available online at the end of the meeting called future agenda items. And I was told that that's no longer on the agenda. And I did not make the beginning of the meeting, so I didn't hear if you did any changes to the agenda. But from the standpoint of the public, we're assuming that there is an item on the agenda that says future agenda items. Is that on there or not?
I cannot speak to that. The county manager may be able to speak to that. There is come to our attention that somebody has copied the official agenda and then modified it and then recirculated to look like an official agenda item. Is that, Ms. Guillet, are you there?
I'm here, Chairman. we did get a copy of an agenda that was circulated earlier. That was the official agenda that somebody had gone in and made some comments on about public comment. It does not match any of the agendas that were posted. The items for future agendas is not on the agenda for this meeting. Additionally, because of the technical challenges that we have with the meeting today, we put a note at the very beginning of this agenda notifying the public that we would only be taking public comment on items that are specifically listed on the agenda today. So we tried to make that as clear as we could for the public.
Thank you, Ms. Kieh.
Okay, let me just clarify, just so you understand. The agenda that's actually physically posted online right now, I just downloaded it again, shows on the agenda items for a future agenda. Okay. That is on the agenda. So that has been out to the public for some time. It doesn't look like it's been tampered with. I've been looking at this agenda for at least a week now, and that has been there all along, and that is your officially published agenda online.
Ms. Buchheit, thank you very much. We'll certainly have staff look into it. Do you have anything more regarding this issue?
No, but I just hope that you conduct any business on the exchange out in the open forum.
Hello? Next
Hi there,
caller.
it's Andre. I'm back on.
Okay. I apologize for the
Hi there, this
technical
is Andre
difficulties.
Class again.
Okay, please,
Hey, no worries, it's all right.
Spell your name, please, for the record.
Sure thing. It is Andre, A-N-D-R-E, Class, K-L-A-S-S, 3250, Retreat View Circle, City of Sanford, zip code 32771.
Thank you, sir. You're calling in favor or opposition?
Opposition.
Please proceed, sir.
Sure thing. So a lot of fellow residents in the community have expressed many of these concerns, and I stand with them to also support their opposition due to the nature of the surrounding impacts to residential communities in that part of the county. I do share that those concerns are perfectly valid, that the proposed land use would be inconsistent with the surrounding residential developments, and as such would have some negative impacts on these communities and also the traffic flows to and from with them. Therefore, I wish to express my opposition, and I hope upon your review that you will share those same concerns as the resident and subsequently make a decision in their favor over this potential development, not intending to be insensitive to those who need these type of treatments. Of course, I just think that this type of property or this type of development would be better suited for a different location given the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller, please. Name and address, please, for the record. Caller, you're on.
Hi, this is Ken. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Your name and address, and
Hello?
please. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
My name is Ken. Yeah, my name is Ken Leap. That's L-E-A-P.
And your address, sir?
I live at 5993. Go ahead.
Sir, do you have your television on?
No, I just muted it.
Yes, please. Thank you. We can't hear you, and it gives us a double back feed when you're doing that, sir. Go ahead and proceed. Your address, please.
No problem. It's muted. Please repeat again because we keep talking over each other.
Your address, please.
5993 Jessica Drive. I live in the Bear Lake Woods subdivision.
Thank you, sir. And you calling in favor or opposition of this project?
In opposition.
Okay, sir, please proceed.
Okay, I'm in agreement with what my neighbors had said. I just wanted to maybe highlight two additional items. That would be with the traffic, since the dialysis center would have right in, right out only. My concern is any clients coming in from Maitland Boulevard, turning on to Bear Lake Road, they would not be able to make a left-hand turn into the medical facility. My guess is they would probably go down to Jessica Drive and turn into Jessica Drive to turn around so they could come back out heading south on Bear Lake Road to turn in, to make a right-hand turn into the facility. So that would just be adding, along with more traffic into Bear Lake Woods, our own community. The other item is the use of our retention pond for runoff. That retention pond is maintained by our homeowners association. There's a cost to maintaining that. And I've got a concern with what this will mean to our retention pond. That's all I have for right now, but thank you for hosting this meeting.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your patience. Okay, looks like we have no further callers. Clint, or you have anybody queued?
You're correct. No additional callers.
Okay, with that said, we will ask the applicant, either Mr. Ashby or Mr. Kennedy. Do you have any rebuttal? Mr. Ashby or Mr. Kennedy,
yes.
Are you on? Okay, sir, please proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, one of the comments somebody made is that we're a Colorado corporation. While that is true, we provide services to dialysis patients across the country. And in fact, DaVita means to give life. And DaVita does give life to Seminole County residents. So while we, aren't headquartered in Seminole County, we do provide critical life-saving measures to the residents of your county. The existing clinic is in a modular building. It is literally separating in half, and it's approximately 2 miles just north. So it's west of Bear Lake Road on 436. As I mentioned earlier, we had a neighborhood meeting. That meeting appeared to surface only 2 major concerns, and that was traffic, specifically onto Paxton Court, and providing some landscaping screening along Paxton as well to kind of minimize that visual impact of the development. Now with the staff supporting a right-in, right-out solely onto Bear Lake Road for access and removing that access to Paxton Court, I was under the impression we would mitigate pretty much all of the concerns that have been raised today. Just a few points of clarification. Dialysis patients spend about 4 hours per treatment, and each of those treatments are 3 times per week. So as far as traffic is concerned, people are not coming and going at a high volume rate. It's really spread out throughout the day. Clarifying employment, we would likely have 14 teammates at full capacity at this center. Mr. Ashby provided some traffic counts as part of the application. I believe it was 181 cars per day, which is about a 1.6% increase to the existing 11,000 plus vehicles per day on Bear Lake Road. It's my understanding the intent has always been for this property to be zoned commercial. In fact, 2/3 of it is already zoned commercial, and it was intended for that as part of the Bear Lake Woods PUD back in 1994. I believe the development on Paxton Court didn't come into play until after 2010. As far as access in and out of the site, about 1/3 of the patients drive themselves. About 1/3 are brought by a family member or a friend. And then about 1/3 are brought in through some sort of a ride share or other public transportation or like skilled nursing facility access vehicle. It's our understanding the retention pond was designed for commercial, In fact, it was designed as part of the Bear Lake Woods subdivision, and this property was shown as being commercial and was planned for this to discharge its stormwater into that. DeVita does not have medical waste going into the drains or into the sewer. Any of that, it would be stored into in a biohazard room within the building that a third party would pick up. Any waste that does go into the sewer is essentially urine, which is from the dialysis machines. Anybody that does go into a renal crash is going to go directly to a hospital. This facility is not set up for ambulances bringing a patient here. Treatments are scheduled via appointment, so if somebody does go into renal failure, they're likely going to go to a hospital first. Once they have been stabilized in the days or weeks ahead, then they would be setting up their weekly appointments to come to this facility for treatments, typically 3 times per week. I think medical is a far less intensive use than any kind of a retail use that could be placed on this property. Regarding the environmental species study, we did complete one of those. There were no endangered species found nor habitat on the property. And I think that covers the majority of the comments. If you have any other questions, feel free. Otherwise, I think this is really up to the commission to determine what is in the best interest of the county. Again, it was our understanding that this site was always intended to be commercial. 2/3 of it exists today as commercial. And so we felt that with staff support, it was technically just cleaning up a boundary division between development that was entitled over 20 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, this is Commissioner Constantine's. Commissioner Constantine.
Mr. Chairman, will we have an opportunity to ask questions of staff?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, allow Commissioner Carey to ask her questions before
Commissioner Carey, go ahead.
Yeah, so these questions are all for staff. So in looking at the documents, it is before us because of the split zoning, where it's already zoned commercial in the front and agriculture on the back. So that's the only reason we're hearing this today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you say that's correct? Okay. And so the property that's zoned commercial, I heard the applicant say that he thought it was part of the PD, that's the Bear Lake PD, but when was this property actually zoned commercial?
I'm going to bring up the zoning map. This entire piece that has the C1 zoning along Bear Lake Road, that has been in place since prior to 1974. I double checked our historic zoning maps and the C1 zoning has been in place since at least then.
Okay. And the retention pond, which if you go to the aerial, which I think is your next slide, the retention pond that's there behind this property, is that retention pond the pond for this site, or that's strictly for the subdivision?
It's strictly for the subdivisions.
Okay, and so would this applicant have to design their own stormwater pond or their own stormwater structures?
You want to answer? John Dredge from Public Works will answer.
Good afternoon, John Dredge, Public Works Director. The stormwater, the applicant claiming they may have easements or they, there is some accommodation in that part for the site. But during the site plan, they're gonna need to provide evidence if they do have, if they already included in the design for that retention pond. Otherwise, they have to provide their own retention pond on site.
Okay, well, while you're sitting there, let me ask you another question then. Somebody mentioned that there is an easement onto Jessica, and I noticed that this property, the site, it runs behind the convenience store and does intersect with Jessica. So even if there's an easement, which would give them legal access with or without our permission, if, would they be allowed to use that? So I'm asking the question mostly if you're putting in allowing a right in, right out on Bear Lake and somebody coming from the south headed northbound on Bear Lake and they can't turn left into the site.
Right.
Is there alternative to go to Jessica and turn left and go behind the convenience store to enter that site?
No, there is that easement for buffer easement, landscape buffer easement. They cannot access it
So
from Jessica.
it's not a right-of-way easement for purposes of right-of-way?
No, there is a buffer easement for landscape buffer easement. They cannot use it for access.
Okay, all right. That's the only questions I have for you. I can go back to Ms. Pettick if
Okay.
So then there was also a comment made about, bears being in the dumpsters, and isn't this parcel in our bear management area, and wouldn't they be required to secure their dumpsters?
Yes, the property is in our bear management area, and it's actually stated in the staff report that it will be required to comply with the bear management overlay. So they'll have to secure their garbage and comply with our ordinance.
And just two other comments that I have. One is, it sounds like we need to ask the sheriff to go out and do some enforcement in this area, regardless of what happens here today. I heard a lot of comments about speeding, cut through traffic, even though they said they were cul-de-sac roads. But maybe that could be a request from the district commissioner's office to the sheriff's department. And then my last comment is I do have a lot of ex parte communication about this hearing, and that will be submitted directly to the clerk as part of our process today.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Yes, thanks so much. I don't know if this is a question for Dana Lee or maybe Mr. Applegate, but it looks as though part of the current commercial piece, the little general store, convenience store, also has, it was not cleaned up. Part of it is also still future land use low density residential. And yet they were able to go ahead and build their store and operate commercially there. Is there some reason, I guess this is a two-part question. Is there some reason why the current landowner could not utilize this as it is now, just like the adjoining did in its current state? That's the first.
Yeah, I'll speak to the convenience store. It's existed for a very long time, I believe since the 1960s. So it's pretty much just allowed to operate as is. If they were to redevelop it, they would likely have to rezone and change the future land use of the entire site to be C1 and do a site plan and comply with our current codes, which is why this property where DeVita would like to locate us. So.
Okay, so then the second part of my question is if we were to deny this property owner the ability to clean up their parcel and make it all commercial, would they have a Bert Harris claim in some way, shape, or form?
It's hard to say until we see something like that. I don't, as long as your decision is based on substantial competent evidence and what you heard here today and part of the record, I think your decision is defensible. I can't tell you what they would do, but I think we could defend that kind of claim.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
So I don't know that the first part of Commissioner Lockhart's question was answered, and that is, could this applicant take and just build on the commercial portion of the parcel and not utilize the piece that is A1 in the back.
If it meets all the other requirements, I don't see why they couldn't. But again, I think that would be more of a, engineering type question as to what can be done on the property.
I think staff's trying to weigh in. Dana Lee, are you trying to weigh in?
Yeah, so we may be able to accommodate a retention pond in that area, but the majority of the site development would have to be in the portion that's C1. And from my understanding, this applicant needs to utilize the majority of the site for their particular development, but the applicant can weigh in on their site design.
Yeah, so just to be clear, clear up for the record, basically the portion that is currently zoned C1, somebody has the right to come in and build on the C1, provided that they can have a site plan that maybe that's could be anything, but it's commercial zoning, so a commercial entity that could fit that footprint with the proper drainage, site work, et cetera, is entitled without any zoning change to build there now. Correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Great. Okay. Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I am submitting my ex parte communication electronically to the clerk. My staff is doing that presently. And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Chairman, as well as Mr. Applegate, about the parcel zoning that's in C1 and the existing zoning, which is A1. I believe that this area, since it's such a small piece of C1 that's there, is supposed to be for the neighborhood commercial, not regional commercial. That's why it's so small. And once you start expanding it, now it's going to become more regional than it is neighborhood. And that's where my reservation comes in. If you look at the area, it's all surrounded by single family homes. It is a neighborhood within a neighborhood. And I really believe that it should be, if it's a commercial piece, it should be only for residential, for that serving that neighborhood area. I think one of the residents actually talked about that. I don't think that the neighbors, from what I'm taking from their testimony, is saying that they're opposed to commercial. I think they're opposed to regional commercial. And I think the small footprint of the C1 zoning shows that it should be neighborhood commercial.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Commissioner Constantine?
is it time? My turn?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to present my ex parte communications also, and I want to thank the patience of both the applicant as well as the citizens, not only for this format today, but because it was extremely important that we did postpone this meeting, or this public hearing from the last meeting, because we were still working through the process. And as all of us have received so many ex parte communications, it's clear that the citizens in this area, this is extremely important to them. The petition had 380 names. The vast majority of them were in the two neighborhoods that are directly related to this property. I think that Commissioner Delory is right on when he said that this property is, and this zoning, if they want to build on the current C1, it is intended, and all clear, it is intended for neighborhood commercial. Many times, Commissioner Carey and I go down the memory lane about certain areas of Seminole County because we both grew up here for so long. This was my street that I grew up on, and I was there until I was 13 years old. I rode my bike back and forth on Bear Lake Road, and the traffic was even bad way back then. I lost my first dog from on Bear Lake Road. But to tell you about even more history of that particular convenience store, that was a shack back in the early and mid 60s before they changed it to the convenience store. And it was a convenience store then. It was a little grocery community store, much like Commissioner Zimbauer you have out there in Geneva today. And that's where I would ride every Saturday to get my baseball cards after I played Little League just down the street. These neighbors, these 23 neighbors, we can assume that the people that are outside the area were calling for other various reasons, more specifically to get airtime. But the people that live there, this is extremely important to them. I went out there 4 different times. The most recent last Friday when there was supposed to be no traffic. We were all supposed to be inside. And I sat at that convenience store in my car, actually went down the street of Paxton and Jessica, waved to neighbors. Both of those streets have children playing on those streets constantly because they are both very small neighborhood streets. But more importantly, on 430, on Bear Lake Road, it was still busy. It was hard to get in and out of that convenience store. People are using this for a cut through from Maitland Boulevard to 436. And let's make no mistake about it, the only commercial on that street is that convenience store. Everything else is off of Maitland Boulevard or off of 436. There are churches, because that's what this community is. It's a community of single family and churches. And if you go down the street just a little ways, you're going to see houses right on Bear Lake up against the lake itself. We have the trail across the street. I just see this as a real recipe for disaster. This is not a new business. This is business now with what we have, and I'm not trying to make any decisions for the applicant, but there are many places that are going to be conveniently open at very good rent onto 436 and other places. And I just don't think that this regional emergency facility is the right place and at Bear Lake Road. And therefore, if they have a commercial availability, if they can fit what they need to do on that commercial, fine. But all around it, other than that, is residential. And I am going to move to deny the rezone, deny the ordinance enacting the small scale future land use map amendment from low density residential and commercial to commercial, and deny the ordinance enacting the rezone of R1A single family dwelling, A1 agriculture, and C1 retail commercial to C1 commercial for the approximate 1.12 acres located on the west side of Bear Lake north of Paxton Court.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have Commissioner Carey that has a question or comment.
I have a question for staff. In this particular use, I believe is probably designated under office. And so isn't that an allowable use under neighborhood commercial?
Yes, it is. Neighborhood commercial, CN restricted neighborhood commercial allows office, business, and professional uses.
Okay. So, you never know what a particular community needs are. Dialysis centers are sited all over the community, and but because it could fit into the neighborhood commercial classification, I won't be supporting the motion because I just think that I think that it's probably some entitlements.
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart.
So I'm going to double down and ask for clarification on the answer that Dana Lee just gave Commissioner Carey, if I could. I think because we are working in this virtual mode, it is harder and we don't have the visuals that we would normally ask you to put up there. And so I'll just ask to have you repeat a little bit of what you said. So for clarification, the current commercial C1 use would allow the neighborhood commercial use of a dialysis center. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when we talk about a neighborhood commercial being more appropriate, like was mentioned earlier, this would be allowed in a neighborhood commercial use.
That's correct.
Okay. So is there something less intense that would be a commercial use that would, is there a zoning classification that would make it less intense even than a commercial, neighborhood commercial? I feel like maybe and I understand where Commissioner Delary and Commissioner Constantine are coming from with this close neighborhood use versus regional neighborhood use, but I don't know that our code differentiates, does it?
Our CN restricted neighborhood commercial use is our most limited zoning classification, and that is what allows medical office, but it also has an extensive list of prohibited uses such as service stations, like what's to the north, hotels, motels, banks, restaurants. So this is the most neighborhood-like commercial, thus its name. So I can actually share the screen so you can see the list of permitted uses.
Would you? I think that would be helpful for everybody.
Hang on. So this is the list of permitted uses in the CN neighborhood commercial district. And as you can see here under subsection Q, office, business, and professional are permitted. And since this is restricted, there are other special restrictions in it and prohibited uses.
Okay. So is there, I know the applicant is asking C1, is there a reason why we wouldn't, if what they want is in neighborhood commercial, is there a reason why they wouldn't just ask for a less intensive commercial?
I believe the C1 is because the majority of the property is currently C1, so they were just trying to keep it consistent with what's currently out there. But if their use is allowed in CN, they would have to confirm this, but I don't see why they wouldn't concur with the CN restricted neighborhood zoning.
I'm just very concerned about taking away the right of a property owner of a zoning that they've had for decades. And this is, one of those situations where we try and be all things to all people, and I'm not inclined to take that zoning away from them.
Thank you. I'll go to Commissioner Carey. Commissioner Carey, again.
Just for clarification, Ms. Keddick, so majority of the property is zone C1, and the reason they're requesting the A1 to be C1 is just to be consistent to what's been entitled there since the 70s.
That's correct, and that they needed to use the entire site for their circulation, parking, and building. So they needed to have that back portion that's currently A1 to be C1, and they chose C1 to keep it consistent with what's existed for decades out there.
But they could have applied for it to be commercial neighborhood and still had an allowable use.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Constantine?
I just want to clarify, nobody is taking away any rights of this applicant. If they want to use the C1 on the property that they have, they can, in putting in the thing. The other property that we're talking about, the A1, would more likely have gone R1A or PD as the rest of the property around it in the two neighborhoods are. Nobody is taking away any rights of the applicant. They have the right to build on the C1 that is currently there. What they're asking for is because they want more density, more use of the property, they want to increase the C1. And I do not feel that this property is subject to that type of intensity, and that this type of regional medical facility could be better elsewhere, and that what we should be looking for there is something that would be more conducive to keeping trips in the internal area of the Bear Lake Road.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for clarification from staff? So this isn't two parcels of property, is it?
No, it's one parcel with 3 different zoning classifications and 2 different future land use designations. And we did get a conceptual site plan, so I just wanted to mention that their building size is about 6,800 square feet, or a floor area ratio of 0.14. So it's fairly small.
So 0.14 floor area ratio when they would have, typical commercial is 0.35.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because Commissioner Constantine's comment made it sound like there was two different parcels. And so, you know, one could have been this and one could have been that, but this is only one parcel of land. Okay.
Correct.
But there are 3 different zonings, and you could use that other property for other uses. I'm just saying that too. Please, let's not confuse the issue. The issue is the traffic and whether or not this is conducive to the community, and it is not.
Okay, any other comments or discussion before we call? We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Carey.
No.
Commissioner Lockhart.
No.
Well, Commissioner Delary.
Sorry, can the applicant in on one?
No.
Hold 1 second. Commissioner Delary.
Yes.
Commissioner Constantine.
Yes.
Commissioner Zembauer. No. Motion fails.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the rezoning as in the staff report.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Commissioner Carey.
I was trying to find my piece of paper that had the first part on here. I would move to adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from low-density residential and commercial to commercial, and adopt an ordinance enacting a rezone from R1A, single-family dwelling, A1 agricultural, and C1 retail commercial to C1 for approximately 1.12 acres located on the west side of Bear Lake Road, north of Paxton Court.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Would that include the transportation of making it required that it's the request of the staff, and it would also make sure that they did not use the drainage pond that is part of Bear Lake Woods?
Well, for clarification, based on the comments from the county attorney or the county engineer, he said that when the site plan is submitted, that they would be able to clarify if the pond had actually been designed for a master drainage, including for this property. So they would have to prove that. And if they can't prove that, then obviously they're going to have to do their own retention. I think that the staff report, when they read the report, said that they were going to consider the right in, right out, the access of being right in, right out on to Bear Lake Road. And my earlier comments to the applicant were about continuing to work for the joint use agreement. I mean, those are all things that will come to bear during the site plan approval. I don't think that Paxton access is appropriate, but I don't think that staff is looking to approve that. I think that their recommendation is for a right in, right out on Bear Lake Road.
All I'm saying is, though, we could put it into the motion if we choose to.
Are you offering an amendment to the motion?
And let me, I hear what he's saying, and I wouldn't have a real objection to that, except that because this hasn't been looked at through engineering, I don't want to put something in the motion that creates a safety situation. I'd rather the county engineer, who's a professional, have an opportunity to review it and either approve it or not. My suspicion is that the county engineer would make the driveway access be as far away from Paxton as possible. So it would be as close as possible to the convenience store. But again, they haven't seen a site plan. This is simply a zoning issue at this point. And I think that those other details would be worked out. And I think if we amend the motion to force that issue, that we may be putting something in place that might be detrimental to the county engineer from a safety standpoint. It would be the only reluctance I would have for putting that. Now, could ask.
I just wanted to say then, I'm not trying to extend this conversation by making another motion to amend it. I just wanted it on the record that I think even you, Commissioner Carey, would like to see those things happen through the engineering of this property.
Absolutely. And my comments earlier to the applicant about trying to continue to work for this joint use. I mean, our policy in the past 25 years has been to ask commercial developers to do a joint access easement so that when properties come on either side of them in the future, we can limit the number of driveways. So, I mean, that has been our practice. I don't think that has changed. And as I said earlier, I would encourage the applicant to continue to work toward that. And I would encourage our engineer, if it's a safe proposal, to force the driveway to be as close to the convenience store as possible to accommodate that in the future.
Commissioner Delory.
Mr. Chairman, I in good faith can't support the motion because I believe that this area should be neighborhood commercial. By expanding the A1 to C1 or commercial, you're actually increasing more density and more congestion in the area, and that's why I'm opposing it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. We're going to call the vote. Commissioner Carey?
Yes.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Delory?
No.
Commissioner Constantine?
No.
Commissioner Zembauer, yes. Carries 3-2. Next up is the county manager's report, item number 10.
Thank you, Chairman. I have under my report, the first thing under my report is an additional item, item number 10. Normally, this item would have gone under the consent agenda. It came in late, and rather than confuse the numbering and order of things, we just went ahead and tagged it onto my report. This is a request to approve an electrical easement for Duke Energy, which is associated with the construction of fire station number 11. We have broken ground out there, and in order to get electrical service, we need to provide an easement. So I'm looking for approval from the board on the easement document.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the electrical easement on fire station site 11.
Second.
Motion by Delory, second by Constantine. I'll roll call. Carey?
Aye.
Lockhart?
Aye.
Delory?
Aye.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Motion passes unanimous. Next up is the county attorney.
I have one other thing to discuss with you, Chairman,
Okay.
if you don't mind. I know
Sure.
It's been kind of a long meeting, but I wanted to just give everybody an update. Alan gave you an update earlier on our efforts with respect to COVID-19. One of the other issues, the ancillary issues out there, has been the financial impact on our community. A lot of all across the community, folks have had financial impact, citizens and businesses alike. But one of the things that we've gotten a lot of questions on from each of you is the impact through our community services department. So I sent you the latest that we had this morning on our metrics on that, and just wanted to give you a quick briefing. I don't necessarily need any action from you, but you may decide you want to take some after we chat just for a few minutes about it. We've received almost 650 applications for financial assistance in the community services department. The average request is about $1,250. It ranges anywhere from $900 to $1,500, which is our cap. In the past, we have given as much as $2,500 in financial assistance for emergency things like utilities or rent. But because we anticipated a significant need, we dropped the max down to $1,500. If all of the requests that we received were to be approved on the average of $1,250, it would be $800,000, a little over $800,000. We don't expect that everyone will qualify. So if only 60% qualified, we'd be at almost $500,000. 60% is kind of high. Normally we don't have that much qualification, but things are tough right now. So we may actually have more people qualifying for the assistance. We have about $365,000 available right now through SHIP funds and general fund dollars and some community service block grant monies. So that means we're running about $125,000 short of what we anticipate we might need for this emergency assistance. So just want you to know that that's sort of what we're struggling with from a staff standpoint. I'm not asking you at this point to allocate funds, but to be thinking about it. Because although we've received about 650 applications, we've only been able to approve 3 so far, which is a real challenge. And the reason for that is most of this funding is tied to state or federal dollars, and there's significant documentation that goes along with that: birth certificates, social security cards, proof of residency. And so it usually takes the applicants a little bit of time to pull that information together. We could waive that, but if we waived it, all of the assistance would have to come out of general fund. We couldn't use any of the federal or state programs. So that's why there's a little bit of a lag. We're starting to get that documentation in from a number of the applicants, but I just wanted you to know that's why there's been a little bit of a delay. One of the biggest challenges we've had, and just stop me if you have questions. I know it's been a long day. I'm gonna try to get through it pretty quickly. One of the challenges we face that we don't normally deal with are evictions from pay-by-the-week hotel and extended stay hotels. There are a lot of people in this, not a lot, but there are a number of people in this community that live in those hotels on an ongoing basis. And they're not clients of ours. They're not people that we normally provide assistance to. They're the working poor. They can typically afford to pay the rates in those hotels, but the situation has created a difficulty for them. We've had about 20 requests for assistance in that arena. We don't have a pot of money designated for that, and we haven't been able to really find any money anywhere else. We've checked with other jurisdictions. Orange County is providing assistance out of their general fund. Volusia and Osceola County are not providing any funding. We checked with HSN, we checked with Dr. Hunter's group to see if there were other opportunities that we could find some financial assistance for these folks, and have not been successful in that regard. So at this point, we haven't done anything from an assistance standpoint for people who are getting evicted from these pay-by-the-week hotels. So that's a challenge we haven't had to deal with, and something, though, that I want to have on your radar. As you know, we have one emergency shelter in the county, Rescue Outreach Mission, and it is full. So there's not any space available for folks there. And Alan talked to you a little bit about the assistance we've been providing to them earlier today. We did get notification that through the CARES Act, we'll receive about $1.3 million in community development block grant funds and over $500,000 in ESG funds. And I sent you a list of the items that we can use those for. However, number one, we don't know when we're going to get the money. And before we can utilize the money, we have to update our consolidated plan to tell them what we're going to use the money for. We have reached out to them and asked for a waiver, or if there's an opportunity for us to go ahead and to pay for some of these items now that are allowed under the Act and to get reimbursed later. We haven't gotten any feedback on that yet. We did get a waiver on the SHIP funds, that $300,000 we have in SHIP funds to use for emergency purposes. We're trying to get clarification to see if we can use those for the folks that are getting evicted from the hotels. We haven't got an answer back on that yet, but they are allowing us to use it for some emergency purposes that we wouldn't normally be able to use it for. That waiver we've already requested and received. So we have, as I said, about $350,000, $360,000 to work with now, but we know that the need is going to significantly exceed that. And it's probably going to exceed that before we have the opportunity to utilize the monies under the CARES Act. That's what we're struggling with right now from a community assistance standpoint. I may come to you at the next meeting and say, look, we've run through all of the funds we have. We don't know when we're going to get dollars, and may talk to you about whether or not you want to reallocate some general fund dollars towards this challenge. But I wanted to put it on the record and get it on your radar. The community service staff, they have been incredible. They have just 650 applications in the last 2 or 3 weeks is a significant uptick in what they've had to process, and they've really done a great job. We've pulled people from other departments to help them do some of the administrative work, but they've really, they care about the work they do. So they've really been trying to push through it and find the quickest way we can get assistance out there. But it's been a challenge, and I know that you've all been very concerned about that. And I wanted to give you an update, like, you know, we're trying to get the dollars where they're most needed right now. But we may have to regroup and think of another way to tackle some of this.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Guillet. And if you would be so kind, I know that, you know, not only are the everyday citizen, the small business owners, mid-sized, large business owners, and governments, we're all struggling on so many fronts, not knowing any certainty of when we're ever going to get back to a sense of normalcy. So if you would be so kind to, if your staff can put together a report of what things may look like and circulate to the commission on what staff with reaching out to our federal partners as well to see if we can get any assistance there and some guidance on the monies that have already been given to us. With that, Commissioner Carey, then I'll go to Commissioner Lockhart.
Yeah, so Nicole, I mean, hopefully these stimulus checks will start going out to individuals here in the next week or so, and that will help with the residential portion of being able to help pay the rent, hopefully. But if you've had 20 requests, and even if, you know, I mean, I don't know what the rent is there, but I'm gonna guess it's $400 or $500 a week. And so even if you said it's $2,000, you're talking about $40,000 or $50,000. And so we've had a lot of communication from our federal lobbyist on the CARES Act, you know, daily updates I get from them about that. I don't think anybody really understands yet what all that means, but I do think that, you know, we don't need families out living in their cars again because of this coronavirus, and for that insignificant amount of money in the scheme of things. I think we need to do whatever we can to try to assist them, hoping that we will get it back or that it will be short-lived. So in that situation, they pay weekly. And so I would just, you know, one of the requirements is going to be to understand if they got their $1,200 per person, you know, for a family, depending on how big the family is. I mean, they may get, you know, several $1,000s, which should hopefully sustain them on paying the rent. They can't evict them, is my understanding.
They can from the hotels.
Well, it's too bad that somebody wouldn't clarify that, because if you've been a long-term resident, even at a hotel, it's still your residence, quote unquote. So, I mean, maybe Bryant can weigh in on that or try to get some clarification out of DC on that particular issue.
Right. Let's go to Commissioner Lockhart, who's had her hand up so patiently.
All right. I agree. Our virtual hands up. I agree with Commissioner Carey. The concern for me, for a lot of these folks, is that the only way you are likely to get your stimulus funding quickly is if you have a bank routing and account number already on file with the IRS. So if you are someone who does not have a bank account, or someone who has not been filing a tax return, or who, however, if your check could be delayed quite significantly, is what I'm hearing from some people. So I would be inclined to go ahead and authorize the county manager to use general fund reserve monies immediately to help those folks who are in immediate need. And like Commissioner Carey said, you know, we'll hope that we get reimbursement on the back end, but if we don't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that.
Yeah, my position on that is our county manager has a certain threshold of approval for certain things. And I would ask that, you know, she make the prudent and appropriate decision. We all want to be in the loop and understand what's going on. I think that this is going to be a bigger, deeper problem the longer this goes on. And I think we need to have a clear understanding, not only what that looks like, but I think we ought to be looking at I know staff is, the impacts to the county, 18 months to 24 months from now, with the downturn, we're going to have the same financial impacts as everyone. So that said, I would hope that our staff is using their prudent decision-making process, and we certainly don't want children and people, staying outside in their cars. And I would urge that I'm happy to call some of these hoteliers if need be, and at least have a candid conversation with them, what they can do to help. Happy to do that. So with that said, I'm not opposed to what Commissioner Lockhart has indicated one bit. Anyone else? Brian, did you need to weigh? Did you want to weigh in on that issue?
I said that I will have an answer tomorrow on that and report back.
Brian, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Brian.
I don't know why I'm not on mute. Let's try again.
There you go.
Now?
You're good.
All right. I will report back tomorrow to you and to the county manager and get an answer on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Having the opportunity to use general fund dollars to have, these are the most precariously housed people right now, and a lot of them don't have bank accounts. So I think if the board is comfortable using general fund dollars, understanding this is a really unusual circumstance, and these folks, I'm concerned, are going to fall through the cracks here. I think it would. You've always shown a lot of compassion in this area, and I think it would be great if you're comfortable with that. We would love to, we'll certainly be prudent, but I think that we can provide some immediate relief for folks that may not have anywhere else to turn.
Consensus of the board?
Yeah. Just a question for Nicole is, are you more comfortable if we put a dollar figure out there for you till the next time we meet, or are you just to go up to the threshold, which I think is $100,000?
My threshold is $50,000, and I don't think we'll get there before the next board meeting. I'll be able to report to you kind of where we are. We can get a better handle on that. We'll make sure that these are Seminole County folks, because we know a lot of other counties are not, as we mentioned, not assisting, and I'm sure word will get out right after this meeting. But I know that you're very concerned about the folks that are living, and of course, if they're living here, they're typically working here, so they are members of our community, and I appreciate the latitude that you're giving us.
Well, I think it's to prevent eviction of these residents,
right,
and not house new residents, because we have a process for them to go through if that's what.
Exactly.
It's to keep the ones that have been living in this precarious situation from being evicted.
Consensus on the board on this issue? Everyone's okay?
I think you have consensus up to a dollar limit.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Thank you. We'll keep you posted on all of the circumstances. Everybody's sort of learning about this CARES Act, and I appreciate your concern and your input. I have nothing else for the board today.
Thank you. County Attorney's report.
I have a few items. I know, again, like Nicole said, it's been a long day. First of all, I sent a copy of the Attorney General opinion on the FAM trips. You may recall that our office felt very uncomfortable approving the use of tourist development tax for those trips. As you saw, the Attorney General agreed, or opined rather, that the money could not be used for FAM trips for the cost of going to and from the county. If you have any questions on that opinion, let me know. You may see some correspondence from tourist groups saying that, it's just an advisory opinion, but I can regale the story of another county that went through an audit over their tourist tax funds, and it's the worst possible nightmare a county can go through on an audit side. Secondly, I'm asking for approval if the governor signs Senate Bill 410. As you know, I've retained out of my budget Neighbors Giblin firm out of Tallahassee to represent the county. I'm asking for the authority that if the governor signs the bill, that I proceed immediately with outside counsel to file the appropriate action in circuit court in Leon County. Since it would be a constitutional challenge of the bill, it has to be filed up in Tallahassee. So I'm asking for that approval.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Second.
I think we're all there, but let's take a roll call just to make sure. Carrie, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Lockhart?
Yes.
Delary?
Yes.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, absolutely yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'll report regularly on that if that happens. And in regards to whether the governor signs or not, on March 27th, I provided you a copy of the letter that I sent to the governor concerning the bill. If you have any questions on that, I want to compliment Laura Yeomans up in FAC, our legal counsel up there. I want to thank her for allowing me the opportunity and our outside counsel to provide comments and edits to their letter to the governor, which was very comprehensive. And just very quickly, for the record, I will read this very short letter because I simply attached a letter that we drafted, that Laura primarily drafted. Dear Governor DeSantis, my office assists in drafting the Florida Association Counties letter stating in no uncertain terms that Senate Bill 410 is unconstitutional. The letter is attached for your convenience. As a county attorney with nearly 40 years of government experience at every level of government, I can state that there is no doubt that the provision related to municipal powers over charter counties, which was added to Senate Bill 410 under the cloak of darkness in the final days of the legislative session, is blatantly unconstitutional and is an attempt to thwart the will of the people of Seminole County. Seminole County urges you not to stand for such action that makes a mockery of the legislative process, home rule, and the will of the people. Therefore, I respectfully request that you veto Senate Bill 410. And then finally, I would ask for your approval. Last Friday, I provided you with a copy of a resolution that you would adopt the technology process that you're now using for these meetings. Is consistent with the governor's order 20-69 and Florida statutes. Alan Harris has issued an executive order to that effect. And this is just as an abundance of caution that it's an extra step, providing that we're following the process outlined by the governor and the Florida statutes. You have a copy of the resolution. I would ask for its approval.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Carrie, a second by Lockhart. Let's roll call. Carrie?
Yes.
Lockhart?
Yes.
Delary?
Yes.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Unanimous. There you go, Mr.
Thank you,
County
Mr.
Attorney.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Next is district reports. We'll start with District 1, Commissioner Delary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank all the staff members that have been working during these times, as well as all the first responders, as well as the emergency management team. It's truly an amazing amount of work and heavy lifting that they're doing, and also being away from their families and their loved ones. So I wanted to make sure that we actually thank them. I also want to give a special thanks out to Bob Pike, our building official, for going the extra mile to helping with the certificate of occupancy with FDOT project along I-4 over by International. Without his work and doing a great job, that project over there may have had some issues, and I want to thank Bob for that. Also want to announce that we got a letter from Florida Department of Transportation. They're accelerating a significant portion of I-4, the segment westbound on I-4 through downtown Orlando, as well as portions of the 408 interchange. They're accelerating those projects. I wanted to thank them for that. Also want to ask County Attorney, as well as the County Manager, to research about TDC dollars. I was talking to the GM of the Hilton Altamont and didn't know if we could postpone those dollars. And I'd like to know legally if we're allowed to do that. Don't need an answer right now today. I know they may have to do some research, but I want to make sure that we're actually looking at that, because it could help those hotels in staying open in the upcoming months. So Mr. Applegate, if you could, as well as Nicole Gay, can you look into that, please, and respond to us in writing? And then the other thing I'd like to do is, I know there's a lot of things happening right now with the shelter in place, but we need to be giving some thought about mental health outreach. Because what's going to happen is the longer we stay with shelter in place, mental health outreach is going to be more significant as we move forward. And I want to make sure that staff can research that and give us something back by the next meeting, if there's something that we can do, either do some type of outreach or some type of help with people that are residents here in Seminole County. And in my report.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLauria. I would assure you that Alan Harris and his group are engaged with the healthcare providers. Okay. That was a topic discussed yesterday, bringing those people together and doing a lot of that. So I would just say, Ms. Guillet, if you would just follow up on and ensure, I guess if Alan needs anything or his people need anything, we provide additional support services there.
Mr. Chairman, don't misunderstand my question. I know that Alan and his whole team are doing a phenomenal job. I just want to make sure that we focus on that as well, because in the upcoming weeks, it's going to be needed.
No, absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Let's move to District 5, Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I get started, just for clarification on the request of Commissioner DeLauria, I mean, tourist development dollars don't get collected unless you have people staying in your hotel, and it's an additional tax paid by the people that are staying there. So nobody's staying at the hotels. You're not collecting. I mean, I don't know why we would suspend it when we have bonds against it and everything else. It's already going to be impacted. So staff is already under a lot of pressure and the way they're having to work. And I just would hate to see them spending time, you know, when they've got a lot of other things to go on. So am I misunderstanding about the tourist development tax? I mean, we don't collect it unless somebody's staying in the hotel, correct?
That is correct, but it's collected in the arrears portion. I mean, you don't pay it immediately. And our bond counsel will be the one answering that question, not our staff.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that if something we can do, we should entertain it.
You need it.
I think we can get an answer for you pretty quick on that. It's
okay. As far as my report goes, just to keep it as brief as possible, I do want to keep you updated on the Sanford Airport. First of all, their terminal expansion project is moving along pretty well, 76% complete and still on schedule, as most construction projects are moving right along. However, March travel was down 46% due to the COVID-19 virus, and April is expected to be down 90 to 95%. International travel is shut down altogether right now, and you know, typically our heavy travel seasons are May, June, July. If the attractions aren't reopened, they are expecting low travel, which would really be impactful on both the airport operator as well as the Sanford Airport Authority. The best expectation they have of recovery at this point is during the holidays, November and December, to see that happen. Probably the growth had been projected and anticipated by Allegiant over the next 2 years probably will either be delayed or not occur at all. Certainly, the Orlando Sanford International Airport, which is the operator of the airport, has taken this opportunity to do repairs and different things that need to happen in the terminal. So that is good news. And but the financial impact to the Sanford Airport Authority is significant, as well as to the operators. And in fact, the airline industry, according to the report the other day, is taking a $252 billion hit during this particular time. So we are not going to be exempt at the Sanford Airport from those impacts. So just keep that in mind.
Chairman, if I could just add to that, Commissioner, sure. Commissioner Carey, I'm sure you haven't seen this because it came in while we were in the meeting, and I don't know if the rest of you got a copy of it, but Diane Cruz sent out an email just about an hour ago saying that under the CARES Act, Sanford Orlando has been appropriated $22.7 million. They'll have to apply for that. They have to keep their 90% of their workforce by the end of the year. But just late breaking news, so it dovetails nicely with what you were just sharing with the rest of the board. And if you didn't get that email from Diane, I'll get it forwarded to your offices.
Okay, well,
thank you.
I'm busy, so I haven't had a chance.
Within the last 60 minutes, so yeah.
At the Expressway Authority, just a couple of quick things for you. The pay-by-plate will still go into effect on July the 1st. We also have about 6 sites that we're looking at putting solar farms in adjacent to the coal facilities. We had requested 8 new highway patrol officers. We haven't had any since the Expressway Authority started. We have the same number as we originally started with. Governor DeSantis had agreed to appropriate it in his budget, but we haven't, of course, we don't know the outcome of that yet. We also are going to be instituting a program called the Part-Time Shoulder Use Program. And so during peak travel hours, we're going to test this in certain areas where the drivers will be able to utilize the shoulders of the road to help accommodate some of the peak hours, and that will prevent us from having to build totally new roadways. We also, started an environmental stewardship committee. That's something that, as the chairman of the Expressway Authority, I thought was important to look at. I think that the example of the Wekiva Basin Commission that Commissioner Constantine chairs and that I serve on with him has been very helpful in the development of the Wekiva Parkway, doing it and paying close attention to environmental issues that you always have whenever you're building new roadways. And so our board approved developing and starting a environmental stewardship committee. Each one of the counties will have an appointment to that, as well as which will be a staff person experienced in environmental issues, as well as the 3 governors' appointees will also have representation. And then the I-4-408 interchange that Commissioner Delary mentioned, it's 83% complete. And certainly we're happy to see that DOT is moving up some of the I-4 projects. I'm hoping that they will move up some of the beyond the ultimate projects, which will impact the northern portion of Seminole County. And maybe we can get some of those done sooner versus later. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, except to say that ditto on the compliments to our staff. I think all of our staff and you, Mr. Chairman, have done an excellent job in trying to keep the public informed. Our employees, all of our employees, not just in emergency services, are working under extremely challenging times. It's not always easy to work from home for people who have small children or animals or different things going on. That's easy to get distracted. And so I really want to just applaud our entire Seminole County team, all 1,600 plus or minus employees, for doing such a great job. And then a special shout out to our emergency services folks.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Okay, next up, Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I, as Commissioner Carey indicated, with the governor pushing forward on the ultimate I-4, I think we all hope that he also uses his executive powers, maybe gets some of the bonding issues and get some more shovel-ready projects out there, get the construction going on generational projects that we can use throughout the state. I just wanted to say from Mr. Applegate, our attorney, I also sent a letter on behalf of myself, on behalf of the Florida Association of Counties, on a request for veto for 410. One of the things that I want you both, all of you to know, that both houses did not get the 2/3 mandate vote that they're required to have when they're placing mandates on counties or local governments. So that is another aspect of this bill that I think bodes well for us when it goes, if it goes through the courts. Hopefully the governor will save us from doing that. I wanted give you an update on Lynx. As we all know, Lynx has curtailed much of its but cannot do all, and should not do all, eliminate all of its people do still have to get to work, so they still have lines, but it is reduced. But one of the things that that fell through the cracks with all the other things going on that you may not have heard, Lynx is now doing all free rides. They're not collecting, so anybody out there that needs to get to someplace, it is a free ride, and for the safety, for the health of both the individual as well as the bus drivers. So we do that. I wanted to share in all of your accolades to all of the staff, to all of the workers, doing such a great job at the county. Everyone is doing it. Congratulations to Nicole, to everybody. Certainly Alan Harris once again. And Mr. Chairman, I even have been watching your press conferences and wanted you to know that you're even doing a very, very good job. So
Thank you.
Congratulations. The last thing.
Even you.
I'm sorry. Well, you know what I mean. I didn't mean it that way. I just was very impressed with how he's handling it. Everybody is doing such a great job. Amy, I don't want to extend this any further because I think that's your dog that's begging you to pet it.
No, it's not.
Whose dog is that? Is it your dog, Brenda? I'm telling you.
Yes, my dog was begging to go out, but
it's staring at my heartstrings. That dog just missed you so much.
Fortunately, she did it during my report, so I couldn't mute myself. But she has since been let out the door, so so appreciate that. But I'll mute my mic now.
Well, the last thing that I want to do is, 3 months ago, we made a decision to look at the possibility of the swap with the Econ Wilderness area. We have since that time received from the applicant his request of the DRC. We have received more than 6,000 emails in opposition. It's been 3 months. And so therefore, I'm going to request that we put that back on the agenda, whether it be an open or a closed is really dependent upon what the attorney feels is most appropriate. But put that on the next regularly scheduled agenda for our consideration as to whether to continue down that path or to go back to federal court.
Mr. Applegate, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
So I would like your guidance on that. I think that there's been a lot of things going on with, the COVID and the virus and all this stuff. I know that this application came in. I'm hoping everybody has seen everything that's come through. I think we've all had those emails. I would like to find a way that you move this to a shade meeting as soon as you can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I will work on seeing how we can do a shade meeting with the technology and work with Nicole to get that done.
Thank you.
So, go ahead. I mean, does that mean, this is my report, but does that mean it will be on the next regularly scheduled meeting?
I don't see why we should not be able to do that. We should be able to do that, no problem.
Okay.
That's your call.
Yeah, let's get it on the agenda.
I'll follow the county attorney's lead on this. So just
absolutely.
For clarification, you just asked for a shade meeting, and so would we not have a shade meeting and then decide if it would go onto the agenda or not?
I think
I could ask for a shade meeting if the will of the board is to discuss the case further, litigation strategy and expenditures. I can ask for a shade meeting on the next agenda. And then obviously, if there's any decision made at the shade, or not decision, but discussion, then it goes back to a public meeting for a vote, much like you did on the settlement agreement.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm fine with that.
Next regularly scheduled meeting, the shade meeting, and then we'd go back to the
right. Again, scheduling the meeting is your call, not mine, but I can certainly work towards a shade meeting.
Chairman, would you like me to make that as a motion?
Let's get it on the agenda. It's time.
You don't need a motion. We'll just put it on the agenda.
Okay. Good. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Anything else? That's it?
That's my report.
Can I ask for clarification? We're gonna schedule a shade meeting. Are we also going to put something on the regular agenda?
The shade meeting will be on the agenda, as we've always done in the past, as an item.
Right.
Okay, but nothing else, there doesn't need to be a
No.
separate item on the actual agenda. Okay,
No,
got it.
If we come to any decision, it will go back to the commission that meeting.
That's correct. That's the process.
Okay, Brian, I'll just work with you on how we need to get things on the agenda. Okay.
Absolutely, of course.
Right. We have a Commissioner Carey's got her hand up.
Yeah, because I do my little man and it doesn't pop up. But so for clarification, I mean, this application has been submitted. The public hearing process of both the P&Z and the county commission are calendared, right? And so, I mean, obviously we'll have an opportunity to vote it up or down at that point. And, you know, I think that when we took the action to put it out to do the extension, it was so that we could see and have an opportunity to review the application in a public format. So, I mean, I understand what Commissioner Constantine is asking for. He's basically asking to have a discussion about terminating the agreement, right, Commissioner Constantine? That's what you're asking for.
I am asking that a shade meeting I was willing to do it open or shade depending upon what the attorney requested. No, I did not say that I'm looking at termination. I'm looking at, this is due diligence. It's been 3 months. We've had 6,000 plus emails. I think it's time, just like I'm sure the applicant and his folks are looking every day. We have the right to get out of this at any time for any reason. And I think that this is a good time for us to take that into consideration. Have, in this case, I think a shade meeting is what the chairman's asking for. In either case, if we come up with a decision at that, then we go back to the meeting and we vote it up or down. I don't want to get into a debate as to yes or no, because I think that is inappropriate at this time. I'm just wanting to get it on the agenda.
Right. And I was just trying to clarify exactly what we were asking for, because the applicant has the right to terminate as well at any time, reason. So obviously, if the applicant wanted to terminate it, they would have terminated it. So I just am trying to understand, you know, are we having a shade meeting to talk about terminating it versus just going through the process? We've all gotten the emails and all of that, but, you know, we also have a right to hear applications. So,
well, in my discussion, I said either, you know, that it's time for us to consider either continuing down this path or terminating it and going back to federal court.
Okay. Commissioner Lockhart.
Well, one of my concerns from the beginning is as we have the shade meeting, the public feels more and more of a lack of trust, I think, with the process. And the process with this whole item is unbelievably important in my mind. And maintaining fidelity of the process, I think, will help ensure that when we get to the outcome, whatever it may be, we can at least look back and say that we maintained an orderly process. And so I've read all the emails, seen a lot of things on social media, certainly have had a lot of input from around, but there's nothing that has happened in terms of process yet. The item has actually come to us to officially review it and take action. And so, you know, I'm a process person, and so it concerns me when we seem to just decide that we want to go back into the shade to discuss something. But I mean, personally, I'd rather have the conversation in the public. But I'll do whatever the majority of the board wants to do at this stage. I have a lot of questions about, you know, the environmental studies. Have they come back? I haven't seen them on either on the other parcel. Now, I have lots of questions, and I'm happy to ask them publicly, or we can ask them in a shade meeting. But I'm concerned that every time we go back to the shade, it puts more of a cloud of distrust on the process. That's all.
and Commissioner, I concur in the fact that I'm also willing to do it in the public. I am leaving that, as I said, to the attorney and the county manager to decide which is most appropriate in this whole arena of what we're dealing with right now. I know that from what I just heard from the chairman, he feels that it's better to do it in the shade and then come out to the open, and whatever decision we make, if we make one, I'm willing to go that route also. I just think that this is an appropriate time for us to consider our options, because we have the right to get out at any time, and we have the right to continue down this process.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Lockhart, your district report. And thank you, by the way, for picking up the rescue mission and working with all those restaurants and folks to try to facilitate food and getting things handled. Good stuff.
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to serve as your representative on their board right now, and really thrilled that so many people in the community have stepped up and offered to help. And it is overwhelming for the responsibility that I have over there right now to take care of those 100 and some residents. So thank you. More help will be needed, I'm sure. So I wanted to ask a little, of course, many thanks to everyone, just like everybody else. I mean, I don't know, Nicole, how you and your team are handling all of the number and variety of things that come your way on a daily basis. It's when we think about our emergency operations team working through hurricanes and things like that, there's usually an end in sight, and it's dragging on. So
it's very unusual, and everybody, we have a group of troopers in this organization, and they care so much about this community and each other. It's really been wonderful to work with. It's not been a wonderful experience, but if we had to go through it, this is a group that I want to go through it with.
Absolutely. And let us know if there is anything that we can do to help. As policymakers, when the rubber meets the road, there's really not much of a role for us, except that we should probably just stay out of your way in some cases.
Well, and I will say, I'll take the opportunity to say, the chairman has been the face, and Alan has been the face, but all of you have been engaged. I don't know that the public realizes that you've been engaged in the sense that you've been interested and you've been supportive, and you've said, what can we do to help staff? And that knowing that you trust us and knowing that you have faith in us to take care of the community, and having your support and your encouragement has really made such a difference to everybody on the team. And the public doesn't necessarily see that, but it really is. It's given us the confidence to make the decisions that we've needed to make to keep the community safe. So we're all very grateful for that.
That's great. Well, I will ask, when it comes to the policy committee, and that's something that I think the majority of the public doesn't really understand how that works, and how some counties pull together a policy committee that includes many elected officials. And in our community, Commissioner Zembauer represents us as the chairman on the policy committee. Because so many of those decisions are not emergency, as in timely, have to be made immediately, I would like, if there is some way to help those of us on the board who aren't a part of that committee to get some bulleted outcomes, or maybe they get enacted. There've just been a couple of times that I've learned about things via the press conference, and that has caught me off guard. And of course, I understand, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but it is uncomfortable as a board member who is not a part of the policy committee to learn about things along with my neighbors. And so I'll just throw that out there.
I can appreciate that, and we'll certainly, sometimes things happen very quickly, but we do try to get the information to you. The policy committee doesn't meet regularly. It's sort of an ad hoc, here's an issue, and it's kind of an informal committee in the sense that depending on what the issues are, that's who gets included. But we will, I know how important it is because people reach out to all of you when they hear, they read something, and you do need to be able to give them the right information. And so we'll I know that Alan is listening, so we'll certainly try to do give you as much advance notice as we can when things are coming out.
That'd be great. I appreciate that. And then just a comment, Commissioner Jolari made a comment about sheltering in place and being at home. You would never know that we have any type of a safer at home order in place if you go to the Walmart in Sanford on 1792. I would appeal to all of our friends and neighbors during this time. I know it is incredibly hard, but necessary really means necessary, and it's hard for the people who work in these retail environments that are considered essential, that if we all are going to the store and not helping to maintain the social distancing, it's going to be really difficult for our community. And so I would appeal to you on behalf of all of the folks that have to work in these stores to really only go there if you need something, and to be especially cognizant of keeping your distance from those around you. I know there are law enforcement that have visited that store in particular, as well as some others. And, none of our law enforcement want to cite people and give out $500 tickets that no one can afford right now, frankly, because of this. So we just need to be taking some personal responsibility. And
they do curbside pickup at that store.
Fascinating. Yeah. And maybe we need to continue to help advertise, but anyway, I thank you all again immensely for everything you're doing, and I appreciate your willingness to try to have this meeting remotely. I would appeal our next meeting, if we can. I know today it was very, very difficult with all of those calls coming in, and I'm sure Clint is and our IT team doing everything they can to try to streamline us for next time. But I feel very adamantly that our public needs to be able to comment when we convene, even if it's on something that's not on our agenda. And that may be a bit of a can of worms, but I just think that they ought to have the right and the ability to talk to us and appeal to us as a group. And hopefully we'll be there technologically for our next.
We're hopeful. We will do a debrief after this meeting, and we're hopeful that the next board meeting, even if it has to be in the Brady Bunch style, will be back to a regular type of agenda. I wasn't sure. I'm actually very pleased with the way things went today, and we had a few little hiccups, but I think that we can make it work. And we just weren't sure if we were going to crash today, and we didn't want to have a lot of people queued up. So I think everybody, our hope is to get our next agenda back to the way things normally are in the sense of content.
Great, great. Well, thank you all again very much for all your work. That's all I have.
Thank you. Well, I won't try not to rehash some of the things that were already said. I'll combine my district report with the chair's report. For the most part, District 2 is pretty quiet, as most of the districts are. It's been a fast and furious 3 weeks for me, running between, private enterprise, making sure that's handled, being the chair, and then all of a sudden we have a pandemic that breaks out. But again, I will reiterate, we are so blessed, here that we have such experienced individuals in such matters, not necessarily the COVID, but emergency matters. We really do have a good team. I've been sitting on daily teleconferences with other elected officials, as well as, some of our representatives in Tallahassee, as well as DC. And it's a lot to absorb, and things are sometimes changing. I heard the other day it's changing by the hour. Sometimes it's changing by the minute. 3 times I've showed up for a press conference and they've hit me before I run in the door and said, "Oh, by the way, that's changed. Shift gears. That's not something that's old history now." But I do sincerely appreciate the 7 cities who have all working together and communicating through Seminole County, and we're all working together and doing the right thing for the entire community. And I'm very, very proud of that all the county are working together to do what's best for all the citizens. I know, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of things out there that people have. And the reality is we have experts that give us advice, and those are the experts in their field, and that's who we should be listening to. So I've tried to conduct myself accordingly through this whole thing, and I sincerely appreciate the patience of my my fellow commissioners and the support that you've shown during this unfortunate event. I rely on a couple of you who've been here for quite some time that have seen a lot of different things, and a lot of staff that's been here for a period of time that can help and assist in these matters. So with that said, I won't go into much more. Again, I appreciate everybody's support, appreciate everything staff's doing. Two things I would like maybe staff to check into. We had something on the agenda today for AGI funds that was pulled off indefinitely. I would like some kind of briefing if there's some kind of facilitation, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't, for small business. If funding is not going to be used for that process or some other process, is there something we can leverage for the small businesses and helping them fill the niche between what may or may not be happening from a federal or state level? I think we're doing a pretty good job with Reach Out. Seminole State Business Development has been doing a fantastic job in trying to guide people the right direction for SBA, the payroll protection project, and so forth. So any of those things that we can leverage or accommodate, I'd appreciate if staff could look at that and just give me an update on what the thought process is there. Also, I had a conversation with our tax collector. Right now, we are unable to issue driver's license. What they're doing is doing short-term extensions. Apparently, that's through the state. Can't do those renewals at this point. And there also appears to be a need for some individuals who can't update that, need some kind of identification card. And apparently this is for services or interaction, either legal services or other things that they may or may not have identification for. His office has offered and says they have the technology that if we desired, that Seminole County could issue an identification card if the need and purpose was there. So I would ask that the county attorney look at that, see what the real need is, maybe interact with their people and see what the thought process is, and see if that's something of need that we have for either the homeless people or things or people moving through our community. Outside of that, that's all I've got. Again, I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate the patience that everybody's having during these unfortunate times. I truly want us to do and try to get back to a sense of normalcy, understanding we don't control that. I hope that technology will facilitate getting back to some kind of normal meetings, public input, et cetera, et cetera. I know today, I don't know what it looked like on your all's end, but on my end, there was 3 or 4 times where things froze up and I couldn't hear the county manager. Then she came back in. A couple of the commissioners froze up, then came back in. I suspect, we're overloading a lot of the systems, not only us, the school board's doing, all this learning, and almost everybody else is too. So with that said, that's all I have. I appreciate it again. Thank you all very much. And staff, again, be safe, and don't forget about those heroes out there on the front line, the healthcare workers and all those people that are doing their job to keep all of us safe. So thank you. That's all I have. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye. Stay well.
You too.
Well, be safe.
Indeed.